Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is now 7 o'clock. Ms. Petrielli, roll call, please. Oops.
Krinsky.
Present.
Garlovich.
Present.
Lang.
Present.
Mancia.
Present.
Petrielli here. Reed.
Present.
And Schumacher.
Present.
And we're all here.
Okay, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty, justice,
Okay.
comments. And
Okay, now we come to comments and suggestions from the public. Has anybody come to speak before the board? Please come to the mic. Yes. Oh, yeah. You do have 3 minutes. Would you please time it? And so as long as it's about the schools rather than, or the district rather than individual students or teachers.
Can you hear? I
you're
can't
free
hear.
to comment.
Okay, thank you. May I begin?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. First of all, thank you very much for having me here today. I appreciate everything you guys have done over the last year. Dr. Fessler, thank you very much for your tenure. We wish you the best of luck as you move forth, and all of you for everything you've done this year. Obviously, it's been a year that was filled with many challenges. I wanted to speak quickly with you guys about opening schools full-time. And in the beginning, I thought I was going to talk to you about maybe some statistics like, you know, the low transmission rates, or maybe you even heard that recently the news said there's an article that was published that all 4 vaccines have a 100% effective rate to prevent hospitalizations and death. And then maybe that other schools, other districts have been fully open. But I kind of wanted to touch on 2 things relating to maybe lunch, maybe from a personal example, and then another one from maybe from the heart. So first of all, I'm a teacher myself. I'm an educator in high school, and I've been teaching at a school that has been open all year in a hybrid kind of schedule, and we have had full days. Up to today, as of today, we have had exactly 56 positive cases in our school. We've been very fortunate to have 2 full-time nurses who do contact tracing. It's been determined through contact tracing and a negative test, which was required for students who were in contact with anybody who tested positive, that every single positive case was contracted outside of school. And I particularly want to speak to the issue of lunches because I know that's a big topic of discussion. And at our school, I understand it's a high school. I understand that the demographics are different, but the transmission rates between high schools and grade schools is very low, and so and very similar. And so comparing the 2, I think, is fitting in this case. And we, out of the students who eat lunch, we eat lunch in classrooms. Out of the students who eat lunch there, there's been 0 transmission between the students who take off their mask and eat. And the requirement is the students who do eat lunch with other students are asked to go on a 7-day quarantine and can only come back with a negative test. And all students, and you can imagine 50-some cases.
30 seconds.
Pardon?
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
15 plus 15 students per class times, 30 students or so. You can imagine the vast number of students, and they all came back negative within 7 days. And in closing, the other thing that I wanted to mention is I wanted to speak from the heart in terms of how difficult it has been for families with this half day. There's so many families, if I could just get 10 more seconds, there's so many families that are struggling between job balance. Myself and my wife, who are teachers, we're constantly trying to figure out how to pick up our kids halfway through school, juggling financially between paying other people.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
Thank you. I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to speak before the board. Has anybody else come to speak before the board? Okay, seeing nobody in the audience, I have,
Hey, Ann needs to be invited in the meeting. She can't get in. Ann Wing.
She's now in.
Oh, she's in, okay.
That's okay. Okay, I received quite a few emails from people with their public comments, so I'm going to read those now. I don't believe any of them are longer than 3 minutes, so I don't think we need timing, except for the last one, which may be. This one's from Magdalena Duda. I am writing to you in regards to the beginning of the new school year 21-22. Please consider a later school start than August 11th. August is the warmest month of the year, and we believe kids should be able to enjoy summer to the fullest. It would be better for school to end in June than end of May, just as it does in many districts around. We feel like every year it's faster. Why not push it at least a week or two? Signed, Magda. Okay. And the next one is from Jessica Schwartz. I hope I pronounced that right. Hello, I am writing to express my opinion that the proposed back-to-school start date for August 11th is entirely too early. I don't understand the push to have elementary and middle school kids back sitting inside a building in the middle of the summer. Why not allow them at least another week or even 2 to enjoy playing outside in the sun? It should also go without saying that this year, above all others, our kids deserve as much summertime as they can get. The more time away from the inevitable plexiglass and mask wearing that awaits them in the classroom, the better. They have an entire fall, winter, and spring to be at school. Let's let kids be kids. This pandemic has been so hard on all of them. Thank you for your consideration. Signed, Jessica Schwartz. Okay, the next one is from Robin Fabian. To the topic of 2021-2022 school start date, the start of school is just the second week of August, greatly impacts the schedule many of us have during the summer. Many long-standing events occur during that second week of August and into those weekends as school typically begins the following weeks. Beginning August 11th will mean that either children who have missed traditional activities for the past year will again miss traditional activities for a school district changing their schedule out of convenience to themselves. The earlier start date also robs students of important outside activity. As school starts, student activity levels decrease due to being seated for extended periods of time and lack of ability to get outside frequently. During this last week before school starts, kids are getting their last days at the pool in, or family vacations are taking place where students get much needed exercise and enrichment of life. August weather is finally warm enough to enjoy these activities. Students with previously scheduled trips and events will miss school, negating the early start of school, and teachers will have more disruption to their classrooms with new routines being taught and skills being reviewed. Additionally, getting out of school in late May typically is too early for camps to start, whom rely on college students to run them, and the weather is cold and rainy. Staying in school another week would be more feasible for the community resources parents rely on to give their children enrichment and care throughout the summer. In conclusion, let's give these kids a little bit of what tradition is left. We've taken snow days and screen-free learning. Starting the following week would make vacations already planned possible, and students wouldn't have to miss class to do something that they've been unable to do in more than a year. This year needs to be about meeting student needs, and the more traditional start would benefit them greatly. I greatly urge you to review and adjust the proposed calendar to reflect more concern for the children in this district instead of adjusting to another district's calendar. Signed, Robert Makar, or Maker, I'm not sure how she pronounces that. Okay, the next one is from Liz Markey. As a mother of 2 children in District 59, I'd like you to kindly consider pushing the start date of school back to 3rd or 4th week of August. August 11th is too early for them to be able to enjoy the summer. Going a week later into June doesn't concern me as much as starting too soon in August. Thank you so much for listening to my concerns. Signed, Liz Markey. Okay. This next one is from Toby Smith. Hello, I'm writing to provide public input for the next board meeting in March, where there will be discussion on expanding the school day to full days in elementary schools and hopefully all schools in 59. The students have had the chance to now attend school for over a month. The school leadership teams have had the chance to test out processes and mitigations as well. and I think we can agree it's been going great so far. I hope we take the chance now to bring kids back to school for the full days after spring break. This is our opportunity to take advantage of the last 2 months of school, enjoy the warm weather to send kids outdoors for lunch and recess, and help smooth out the school day for kids. Right now, the midday return for kids breaks concentration, creates logistical issues for families, and overall, although a great first step, is still not fully beneficial to students. Our children get it. They need to follow rules to be in school, and I'm proud to say they have proven the adults they can. The kids are already eating snacks in school. It's doable with all the mitigation of the screens, masks, social distancing. This is now the time to move to get our kids back to school full days. It's critical to their success, and they are the number one stakeholders here. I hope the board moves forward with this decision and gets kids back to school for full-time after spring break. Signed, Toby Smith. Okay. This next one is from Sandra S. Hi, this is my comment for public session of the board meeting. I want to write to support our children's return to school full-time after spring break. The kids need as much in-school time as possible, having to miss out so much this year already. Mentally, I see a difference in my kids already, and with the ability to eat snack in school already, they should be able to eat lunch at school and be in school all day. This is our chance to end the year strong. Please think of our student population and the diverse needs, and the answer should be clear. Coming back to school full days is very important to our kids and parents. Thank you to all the teachers who have shown enthusiasm to welcoming our kids back in each school. Kids belong in schools full-time, so let's get them there now. Signed, Gracias, Sandra Sanchez. Okay. The next one is from Vito, no last name given. Dear board members, our family was beyond excited to return our daughter back to school in January. It's been such a breath of fresh air seeing energy and excitement in kids for learning once again. I'm sure you've heard now the lack of in-person has impacted our children in 2020 and simply let our kids down. But today, seeing the smiles and wanting to learn again is uplifting. With this step, I want to know you have full support from parents that are in person to move forward and make progress to return to full days for the remainder of the year. If you are still unsure, please ask us. Send a survey. But I can almost guarantee you that most, if not all, of the parents currently in person would support returning back to full days today. We have so many great mitigations in place. Returning back to school full days should not be a discussion at this point. It should simply be a vote for yes. Signed, Vito, parent of a third grade Devonshire daughter. Okay. The next one is from Maria Costa. Hello, I want to ask that our kids are able to come back to school full-time. Right now, it's hard work to schedule to have kids return home midday because we are working 2 jobs and trying to make money to support the kids and family. This is hard for us parents, but harder for our 2 kids to have long breaks between studying. Kids need to be in school all day, including lunch to eat and have structure for the day. Hope you allow return the kids to school full-time ASAP. Signed, Maria. Okay. This one is from Micah Koval. Dear board members, the past few weeks proved that schools can be open safely for in-person instruction. There is still a lot of work to be done to overcome the learning loss and social emotional damage that our kids have endured up to this point. It will take months, if not years, to do so. We only have a few weeks of school left after spring break. There is, and this is all caps, no time to waste. The only way these kids stand a chance is to reopen schools for a full week of in-person instruction. The mitigation strategies have been successfully implemented in CCSD59 schools. We have daily health screeners, social distancing, masks, plexiglass barriers, and vaccinated teachers in place. What else does it take to go back to 5 full days a week and start making decisions based on facts, not fear? Getting kids back in the classroom for 5 full days a a week is one of the most important things we can do as we see COVID-19 cases drop and vaccinations being available. Our kids need to get back to 5 full days of teacher-led in-person instruction, no later than spring break. Multiple surrounding school districts have been open full-time since the first day of this school year. Several others are going back to full-time. Arlington Heights School District 25 moves from hybrid to kids in classroom 4 days a week. Out of 5,500 students enrolled in School District 25, 73% of families chose in-person instruction. On January 28th, the District 54 School Board supported the district's plan to bring students back to school for in-person instructions 5 full days a week starting February 16th, 2021. The science is clear and so are the social and behavioral impacts. It is time to get our kids back in the classroom for 5 full days of in-person instruction. Our message to board members is clear. No effort should be spared to get kids back in the classroom for 5 full days right after spring break. That should be your number one priority. And this one's signed Monica, and I didn't look up the last name. It looks like Wojcik Koval. Okay, the next one is from Anna Otruba. You wasted a year now. Let's get these kids back into school 5 full days. This should be done right after spring break. No more horsing around. No effort from all the board members should be spared. This should be your number one priority. I beg you, enough is enough. Signed, Anna Otruba, mom of a kindergartner and second grader at Salt Creek. 3 more. This one is from Kasia Jik. I'm sorry I didn't look up these names, I just didn't have time. Dear board members, here we come, another board meeting. First of all, thank you so much for all your hard work during this difficult school year. Secondly, I wanted to mention that I am working mother of 3 kids, ages 5 through 8, and it's been extremely difficult to coordinate, I think is what she means, work, school, and home all together. Adding, I am really grateful that kids started school and my girls are really happy to be back in classrooms. Another step forward would be 5 full days. Kids are doing great so far and I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that. I know, lunch. But like Mrs. Mardell said at the Daily Herald meeting, kids already have snacks at desks, so why couldn't they eat lunch as well? I don't see any good reason not to do so. They already see each other 4 hours a day and eat snack together. Logic doesn't work here. Not to mention our neighboring districts started full days. Seems like lunch is not a problem here. Kids need more time at school. They already lost a lot of education this year. I know that it's about safety of all and teachers want to feel safe, but cashiers at Jewel or Target have seen many more people daily, and it's working just fine from what I observe. Again, logic doesn't work here. Hope you will take my opinion into your consideration, and you will make the best decision out there for our future. Kind regards, Katarzyna Jik. Okay, this one is from Luna P. I'm writing to support a full-time return to school for full days, especially for the elementary school children, but I sure hope you also allow the junior high kids to return. This is the time to get them back to a good routine, not breaking up their day for travel midday and make it impossible for some less fortunate parents who cannot work from home since they cannot pick up the kids. As I hear discussion about equity, I hope you keep that in mind when making the decision today, so the option is there for everyone to be able to have their kids in school. The weather is getting nicer. Children will have the option to have indoor recess and breaks, and even eat outside if needed. More importantly, being in school all day is what they need to try to catch up academically. Please support the big chunk of the population by moving to full return to school. It's critical to the success, and we owe it to the kids now. Signed, Luna, mama of a Brentwood child. This next one, Randy, if you wouldn't mind timing it, it's the last one, and I think it's long. I will try to speak quickly so that I can try to get through it. You ready? Okay, dear CCSD59 Board, I am the parent of a second grader at Juliet Low and a seventh grader at Holmes Junior High. I am frustrated and disappointed with the leadership in this district. Students were sent home in March 2020 with remote learning being mediocre. My kids were hopeful to return in the fall just to find out that the start date kept being pushed back. When the hybrid model was finally put in motion, students at the elementary level actually lost direct instructional time rather than gained instructional time. Shortly after the hybrid model started, the students quickly moved to attending school 4 days a week. Very quickly, the junior high moved into a 5-day-a-week model, and I thank you for that. On the other hand, the elementary level students continue on a 4-day-a-week model, with Wednesday being remote. In the fall, the reason was to disinfect the building between groups. That is no longer needed now that the A and B groups are in at the same time. I am told that MTSS teams meet on Wednesdays to support students in need, which is why students cannot come into the building. If that is the case, what is the MTSS team doing from 2 until 3:30 the other 4 days when students are asynchronous? Do students really need 75 minutes to travel and eat lunch each day? This seems to be a waste of time for students when they can be in class and learning. I believe that keeping the elementary students remote on Wednesdays is a disservice to these students, and they would benefit from being in person. The elementary students are missing out on foundational skills, social emotional support, positive peer relations, and the list goes on. Let's take this a step further. As schools around us are looking to move to students being in person for a full day, I think that D59 needs to figure this out. High school districts in the area are tackling that very issue right now and bringing students in full day. These students travel to the building and do not remain in the same classroom all day. They will need to be provided the opportunity to eat lunch. Why can't D59 make this happen? At the last board meeting, you indicated that you purchased plexiglass for students that could assist during this time. The multipurpose rooms, LRC, and media center may be spaces that can be used. The CDC and IDPH indicate that 50 people can be in a space as long as they are 6 feet apart. They have also come out and stated that you can have multiple groups of 50 people in a space as long as they are 30 feet apart. They also have indicated that schools are not super spreaders and that 6 foot is only guidance. Lunch can be done in each building if the proper adjustments are made. Schools may need to have lunch in classrooms or increase the number of lunch periods instead of the normal schedule to allow students to access larger spaces. I work at a high school and I sit on the pandemic team, and we were able to come up with a plan to bring students back into the building. We have identified ways to increase the number of students in the building. We are currently having discussions regarding an extended day and providing lunches to students. We cannot operate out of fear, but rather out of knowledge and possibilities for these students to start to return in a normal school environment. Is that the full time? Sorry, the time is up. And that is the last, thank you for timing that. That is the last public comment. So I'm going to move us on to the next item on the agenda.
Janice, I was just going to ask you, I'm not sure if that one was forwarded to us, just because we didn't hear the whole thing. Could you forward us the
Oh,
comment?
I'm sorry.
No,
I
that's
may
okay.
have, yeah, because it came in really late in the day and I wasn't sure. I'll forward that right now.
Thank
My
you.
apologies.
No problem.
Typing Courtney instead of BOE. Okay, I think the whole board would like to see it. Okay, it should be in your inbox shortly.
Thank you.
Thanks for catching that, Courtney. Okay, now it's time for, is there a presentation under 5.0?
No, just discussion items tonight.
Okay, so we're going to move on to 6.01, under discussion items, return to in-person, remote update.
All right, good evening. This evening, our update will follow a similar process, so very similar to what you've seen in the past, just with updated numbers. So our agenda first will provide March return update. We'll look through the hybrid enrollment numbers, hybrid class sizes. We'll also review the metrics with the board, review step considerations that we're currently in. So I'll quickly go through those just to remind the board what we're presently doing. Updates then provided in those 4 key areas: health and safety, instruction, operations, and then communications And then this is all really to provide data and information so that at the very end of this presentation discussion, we can talk about next steps consideration. So I'll have that chart up there twice. First time just to review what we're currently doing, the second time to review next steps with the board. So having said that, Tom Ludloff will begin by sharing hybrid enrollment updates.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Fessler. As we have talked about in previous board meetings, we've tried to provide an update of remote and in-person. This is our update as of last Friday. Since the last board meeting in February, we have had over 300 students go from remote to in-person, and it's a pattern we've seen pretty consistently from week to week as more families return to in-person and make that choice. Basically, this just outlines that process. As you can see for elementaries, we're at the 4 or 5 day piece, and at the junior high, still based on some of those class space issues, at least at Friendship and Grove, we still have an A group, a B group, and then they have been increasing their 4 and 5 day groups over time. The next slide will show the percentages. Basically, it's the same data, just a breakdown of percentages. You can see Claremont has the highest percentage, almost 80% of their overall enrollment is now in person, 4 to 5 days a week. Our lowest percentage, and actually it's worked out well for Holmes, is 43.5%. But that has allowed homes to have almost all of their kids in place 4 to 5 days a week. The next slide is a review of what we've talked about in the past. What are class sizes looking like across the schools? When we talked in February, we had 38 classrooms at the elementary level that were over 14 or greater. At the junior high, it was 141, so you can see we've increased that pretty dramatically. Again, Claremont and Salt Creek and Ridge have the higher percentage of classes that have 14 or more. You can see some, Forest View currently doesn't have any classes that have hit that target or those numbers. Again, schools have done a great job of organizing and reorganizing classrooms, shifting larger classes to more appropriate spaces, and really doing their best to maintain social distancing in the classrooms. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ossel, who will talk about our metrics.
Thank you. On this slide, you're seeing a screenshot of our district COVID-19 dashboard, which is live on our website at all times. You can see from the time that we returned in January, we have had a total students plus staff of positive cases, of 30 positive cases. That's out of the 4,173 people who are in our buildings over the course of each week. We've also had 105 quarantines, again, that's students and staff, in that time frame from January 14th to March 3rd. Our positivity numbers continue to be pretty low. Last week we saw 2 cases in our district, and we are continuing to track that percentage of in-person population that has a positive or probable case over the course of the week, which last week was 0.05% of the current estimated in-person enrollment. So consistently, our numbers have been low over the course of the in-person return and hybrid instruction in January, February, and now into March.
Thank you, Katie. So again, just reviewing quickly, our current step is step 4. We have a hybrid half-day, 4 days per week, and a remote option. And then we also have the junior high extension to the 5-day, which is something we started in March 1st. So it was actually a suggestion, as you may recall, from one of our board members to investigate, and we were able to turn that around and make that happen very quickly. The other difference between the junior high and the middle school model, other than the 5-day, is that the junior high is still at that expanded hybrid because the class sizes are so much larger. We've allowed any tier 2 or tier 3 kids to come in for the 5-day-a-week instruction, and then we're looking at the tier 1 kids based on need. So that is based on teacher recommendations. So if kids are struggling with the remote option, or if kids are struggling with attendance, those are some of the considerations that are given to identify tier 1. So we're continuing to expand that. So that's our current step status. Now we'll just run through, again, updates for the health and safety, instruction, and then the operations. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Assel.
Thank you. I'm going to start with an update on our vaccination status for our staff. A couple weeks ago, we had some great opportunities at the Tinley Park vaccination site and at Loyola, and had 138 staff members take advantage of those appointments when they were available. We also partnered with the Greater Elgin Family Care Center and District 214 to be on a standby list for their operation to vaccinate 44 of our staff members. And just last week, the Des Plaines vaccination site opened, serving our population with the Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine. We had staff members take advantage of that. In addition, this week, we are partnering with several local districts to participate in a clinic on Thursday in Wheeling. And so we got that information out to staff last night, this morning, and have been tracking it throughout the day today to have many more staff members sign up for appointments starting Thursday. And they'll have their follow-up dose on April 1st. Going into the future, we're continuing to explore every option for our staff. We will talk a little bit later about the numbers of staff that have received vaccines and the progress that we've made. But going into the future, we're going to continue working with District 207. I've been in communication with Northwest Community Hospital and with Amita Health just today in terms of when their supply will continue to come in and when they'll be able to serve more of our staff if needed. So we've had really good effort so far. We continue to seek out vaccines in every possible way we can. And we are seeing more and more staff take advantage of those appointments.
So Katie, circling back to the Wheeling Clinic this week, so the initial information that we had received, and again, oftentimes when we're contacted about vaccination opportunities, it's at the 24th hour and you need to come in now or shortly after now, which is absolutely what happened with the Wheeling. So great opportunity. Their superintendent reached out and said, we have 1,600 doses. We want to prioritize them to 3 school districts, 15, 211, and 59 based on their need, as well as 21, which is the school district that is facilitating this with their nurses. My understanding is they had enough doses for all of our staff. Have you heard anything different?
No, that's correct. I've only heard that they have enough doses for all staff to be served.
Okay.
And so we continue to get that message out that all should take advantage.
So yeah, it's critical for our staff. They have to register, so it's critical for our staff to do that. They've also said that, you know, they would give us 24 hours for our staff to get to make their appointments, which, you know, that ends tomorrow at 9 a.m. before they were going to release the extra doses to other surrounding school districts. So again, it's very important that our staff sign up. Chris, you asked a question several weeks ago when we were talking about what does vaccination opportunity look like. And for us, we think this is our opportunity where we have facilitated something with our full staff that anyone who wants the vaccine can get it. So Katie has done a tremendous job sending out 2 or 3 communications to try to ensure that staff are trying to get registered for that vaccine today. We'll try to provide an update as soon as we can tomorrow or Wednesday, just to give you a better understanding. But at last check, we were at about 165.
When we went into the, when we started reaching out to staff for the Wheeling Clinic, we were at 165, and now we're significantly lower. I can get that number in just a
So
minute.
the survey
Tom may
that
have
Katie
it.
has shared with staff is an ongoing survey, so she sends reminders to say, if you've got your vaccine, please update your information so we know how many are remaining, because all of the sites are asking us for very specific numbers of doses necessary. So
We're currently at 89 staff that have indicated they need a shot. Although this is based on the survey, we would rather staff focus on getting scheduled than completing the survey. So we're continuing to work on that piece.
So yeah, that's a big jump from Sunday to today.
And Dr. Fessler, could you just clarify as well for anyone who's listening to the board meeting that if a teacher is able to secure an appointment at any time during the school day on Thursday, are they then afforded the supports to be able to take that time off and make a 1 p.m. appointment or a 9 a.m. appointment?
I'll let Ross address this, but Ross and HR have supported our staff during this like nothing I've ever seen. So Ross, I don't know if you want to provide a few more details, but go ahead.
Absolutely. Our goal is to have opportunities for staff to be vaccinated. Staff on site have done a tremendous job of covering for each other, including administrators, custodial staff, maintenance staff. It's been an all-hands-on-deck approach. and we allow our staff to go without using time off, come back to work.
I mean, literally last week, Cindy was on the phone as the vaccinations were opening up, calling people on the wait list, right in their classrooms or in the offices to make contact to get those. So we have been putting, as everyone has said, all of our effort and energy into trying to get our staff vaccinated.
Dr. Fessler, quick question. If we know 89 staff members need to get their first shot,
Yes.
Correct.
are we not allowed to sign up the 89 if we know who
They
they
have to.
are? They have to do it
They have to
individually?
sign up. Yeah, there's personal information that they have to complete in that application process.
Janice, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm having a great deal of difficulty. I can hear you speaking. I cannot understand what anybody is saying except that one interjection by Ross. Everything else is very, very stuffed. I'm not getting it through on my computer. So I don't know what is being suggested for the in-school, but I do have a comment I'd like to make about it myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. May I make the comment now, Janice?
Yes.
Okay, I unfortunately couldn't hear what you were saying as far as the new plan, but I've been thinking about this a lot and talking to parents both from our district and from other districts, and I am really, truly becoming very concerned about the education that our children are getting, and I think that the 4 half-days is not going to be sufficient. I think we're going to have to get back to full days. The 4 half-days, as far as I can see, by combining the A and the B so that we can have 4 half-days, the classes will be so large that we might as well have regular full-size classes. And the big problem that seems to be the fly in the ointment is for them to be eating lunch in the lunchroom. I don't think we should eat in the lunchroom. If we're going to give them snack breakfast in their classrooms, we can give them their lunch in the classrooms so that each class at the elementary level will be within the same classroom all day with the same teacher, and there won't be the possibility of exchanging the virus around the school as much. So that would be my suggestion. If you want to keep Wednesday for virtual and use it for cleaning the school, that would be fine. If it isn't necessary to keep it for a disinfecting day and we can disinfect on the weekends, then they could go back for 5 full days. I really think we've got to get these children back in school because I think a lot of them are suffering terribly in their academics.
Thank you, Mardell. We have a couple of more slides, and then the
Ross,
goal.
can you do anything with my microphones?
We'll continue to speak louder into the microphone.
I can hear you. I heard that. That's the first thing I've heard.
Okay, thank you.
Ross, maybe if you stand on the chair and hold it. So we have a few more slides we'll get through, and then we'll have that complete discussion. And then our goal is to get direction from the board from the next step. So health and safety continued. Katie, please.
So mid-February, we heard from the CDC and the U.S. Department of Education, who released guidance in conjunction with each other that really tried to align and share the same messages. They both highlighted 5 key mitigation strategies, which we have had in place for the entirety of the school year. They are masks, physical distancing, hand washing etiquette, cleaning and maintenance, and contact tracing with isolation and quarantine. They also have started to differentiate their advice for different levels of community transmission and for schools who have screening testing in place or do not have screening testing in place. So we will be reviewing that. We are still required to abide by our state and our local guidelines. So while CDC and the Department of Ed released this, we are also still looking at IDPH guidelines and the Cook County Department of Public Health guidelines. And we are still attempting social distancing with a goal of 6 feet to the greatest extent possible with increased mitigation and with our community rates being low.
The last piece, I actually added 3 to 6 feet because that represents the conversation that we had at the last board meeting. But I think it is important to note that in the CDC, as you all know, in their recently released updated guidelines, they've indicated if there are low community transition rates, then the social distancing, although critical, you can reduce that with low transmission rates.
On the next slide, you'll see a CDC chart, which indicates the thresholds for community transmission as they define it. We have been operating with the IDPH thresholds, and so now we are looking at both IDPH and CDC thresholds, which essentially takes what we had as 3, minimal, moderate, and substantial transmission, into 4 categories of low, moderate, substantial, and high transmission. On the next slide, you'll see how that's applied with this chart that basically breaks out the social distancing guidance for schools if they are implementing or not implementing diagnostic testing, and if they are in low and moderate transmission or substantial and high transmission. So again, we're starting to see guidance just broken down by the different area transmission rates and by the diagnostic testing plans of the school district. And that brings us to instruction.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to just share a glimpse of what we anticipate the full day looking like. We're always trying to stay one step ahead of where we're going in the next plan. So this is our current details about a full day planning. So at the elementary level, students would start at the same time. They start now, 8:45. The projected end time would be 3 o'clock. I say projected just because we're still working on transportation details. Students would have a snack and lunch at school, and then they would continue at elementary to have Wednesdays remote. I know that's something that's come up in this stage, they would have that. So at the junior high level, we have various options for accommodating staff plan time. At the elementary level, that is really accomplished through specials and kids going to PE and fine arts and LRC. That is challenging to do in the typical way when we are now with all of our mitigation strategies. So we are not able to fully provide the contractual plan time through those specials at this point. We will be better able to in the full day, but still will be short just a little bit. That will be made up for on Wednesday afternoons, in addition to the MTSS process that was brought up earlier. And so we are not able to fully replicate those pieces while in person currently. We also want to mention that on Wednesdays, it really is the helpful piece, I know especially for our teachers of younger students, having all the kids in one space, one day a week is very helpful for bringing the entire class together. I know there's a lot of things they accomplish on Wednesdays. So in this model, Wednesdays would continue remote for elementary. The plan time, the majority of the plan time for teachers, though, now shifts back to specials. Those specials teachers might be going to the classrooms to do the lessons, but they will have specials each day, and that will be how the teacher plan time is accommodated, the majority of it. The staff duty-free lunch in this model will look a little different because we are trying to shorten our student lunch time. In the past, it was 50 minutes. That's a long time for us, having to stagger so many groups and try to accommodate. So shrinking that to 30 minutes would make that process go much more smoothly, quickly, allow us to use all the space. What that means is at the end of the day at 3 o'clock, 3 to 3:20, teachers would have the remainder of their duty-free lunch period. This is something we've been talking about with DEA, trying to see how we can resolve that situation so that teachers in elementary are getting their contractual plan time. It just looks a little different than it typically does. Some of the challenges, but small group instruction, that's something we've heard from teachers already. That's one area that is honestly easier to accommodate when in remote. In the classroom, it's a little harder even today to have a small group instruction while trying to keep distance, while having some kids that are remote and some that are in person. And the concurrent teaching, it is a challenge. And probably more so for the teachers of our younger students. So I just wanted to acknowledge the challenges with each phase.
by concurrent teaching, Maureen, you mean that some kids are remote and some are in person?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then junior high is also very similar, no change in start time, which is 7:45. I should put that on there. The projected end time is 2 p.m. Now we get an increased duration of our blocks. So we do really benefit from that additional instruction time when we go to the expanded day. Students would have lunch at school. Again, some of the challenges would be lunch periods, finding locations for all the students, and then just that expanded day schedule, working through some of the nuances of each location and preparing for that. So I would say we're about 90% ready for that. A little bit of work to do, but that's a little bit about what a full day would look like at elementary and junior high.
Thank you. Next, operations will be presented by,
Do any special conversation with the junior high teachers so that they could say that Grove and Friendship and Holmes have completely separate different ideas and different problems because of the size of the schools. So maybe each of them will have to do a little bit, do whatever we decide to do a little bit differently than the other.
That is true. That is true. Because of their size, there are some variations in how they, especially lunch, how they were going about lunch. So that's a great point. Thanks, Mardell.
thanks, Mardell. Okay, next, Ron and Ross will update operations.
Thank you, Dr. Fessler. The first thing I'd like to stress is that when we talk about a cleaning approach, I hear a lot of times that people say the Wednesdays, but it's daily. We clean daily to make sure that our facilities are up to speed, including routes that are continued for utilizing areas. The Buildings and Grounds Department has gone above and beyond in the best practice by routine cleaning in addition to cleaning for COVID. Door tags exist to indicate a cleaned area. That's just a way for staff to retrace what has been done in a building or room, and again, it's a daily occurrence. Electrostatic sprayers are also used daily for cleaning classrooms and plexiglass. We have handheld sprayers for smaller areas as well as sprayers with backpacks for a larger section. Electrostatic sprayers are paired with disinfectants that are 100% safe, deemed by the EPA, and they can be used on any sort of surface. Plexiglass exists for the learning spaces. They are dividers for students and staff. It is just one more barrier for any direct transmission. However, it is not a substitute for masks. Masks still are the best form of defense. District 59 is extremely fortunate to use the MERV 13 filters. These filters restrict particles in the air such as viruses, pollen, dirt, and etc. These filters are routinely changed as part of the building maintenance. This takes us a step closer to hospital-grade filtration, which few have. Last, the point is, it's important to recognize some of our Cameo leadership for working with Albert on expectations for cleaning that are being held to their standards. We continue looking to make schools safe, and our partnership has gone a long way. And I'd hand it off to Ross now.
In terms of operations for staffing, this is a continuation of what was shared with the board last month. The only exception is that we have extended these supports as the programming allows. So you will see we are still providing partial remote work flexibility through March 19th because it aligns with our current hybrid plan. Staff is aware that when that plan changes, that we will have to adjust accordingly. We will utilize hourly time off for the rest of the year as much as we need it, and we will continue to extend the ADA remote work accommodation based on in-person student needs. That is a legal interactive process, and not one accommodation is required, but we maximize every effort to make sure we can support staff as much as possible without negatively impacting our goal of student programming. Quarantining supports remain the same, and our coverage efforts also continue to be a huge daily celebration. Staff from all groups are chipping in to help out, and we are also trying our best, while it's not much, we are hiring long-term substitute teachers as additional staff members to support in our K-1-2 classrooms. Sometimes these teachers are used to float in between different classrooms. Sometimes they're in a classroom throughout the day. Sometimes they're on a Zoom and supporting some of those students that are home. So we're still continuing to think creatively to support our youngest learners. I believe the next slide is next steps.
Okay, so we've shared a lot of information. I know we shared it a little more quickly than usual, but you've heard it several times, so I know that you're used to the format. So we've talked about current considerations, current step considerations, instruction. You've seen the vaccination rates, 87% of our total staff have been vaccinated. I think that's about 654. So we're getting very, very close.
Just to clarify, that's responded to the survey. 67.2% of our staff are vaccinated, have had one shot, or have an appointment.
Anything else you want to cover on that? That's Tom's bullet. I apologize for stepping
And
on your toes,
actually,
Tom.
clearly staff have been listening because these numbers have changed. We're now down to 88 staff members who need to schedule a vaccination. 90 have completed the process, and I think we're down up to 96 have scheduled appointments. So it's changing by the second.
Thank you, Tom. Much better than what I attempted to do. So a few other things, our remaining days of school, as you look at the calendar, our last day of school is May 27th. And obviously it's been a challenging year, but the year has gone by very quickly. Unfortunately, we were not able to get a waiver for the IAR in Illinois, so our students will have to test. They'll also have access. That's anywhere from 10 to 12 and 7 to 10 days. And again, we have many students who take both of those tests. So we have a lot of testing to do in the fall, unfortunately. And again, it just doesn't make a lot of sense in this year for testing. We think we're going to struggle with participation rates. So we don't know how valid those results are going to be collectively. And then the next thing, as part of the next steps, if we do move to the next step in consideration, we will be sending out a survey to parents in the very near future. As we've said all along, anytime we change a step, we will allow parents to review their current placement or consideration and change. So having said that, I shared earlier that we are in step 4 right now. The next step would be next 5. So as you've heard earlier, that would be 5 full days for the junior high, 4 full days for the elementary school, and then Wednesday would remain a remote learning day for our students at elementary school. Maureen shared the length of days, et cetera. So having heard that, the other piece of information that I think is important, once again, to repeat, is the staff vaccination data. So, we believe by April 1, all of our staff will have had the opportunity to have gotten that vaccination if they've taken advantage of the opportunities that the district has afforded them. So, in terms of a comment that Janice, I think you made at a previous board meeting, that they're saying 14 days is that time that we would wait until after that second vaccination date, which puts us kind of in the middle of the week. So if we were recommending a return to step 5, we would think April 12th, and would want to get the board's feedback and have a discussion at this point to see what direction the board would point us. So at this point, we'll open up to discussion, and then any questions that you may have or any clarity that you'd like around any of the points that we've shared so far.
Wait, just a quick note, Dr. Fessler, you said that the next step would be April 12th. That would be the date?
That's a Monday, and that's, close to 2 weeks, not quite 2 weeks, but close to 2 weeks past April 1st. The CDC has also said that you can open schools safely. They've not defined what open schools means, though. They've not said open schools means full day, every day, 5 days a week. And I was on a conference call with one of the directors of the CDC a couple of weeks ago at the AASA National Conference, and they would not provide a clear definition. Open schools means open schools, so however a community defines it with whatever their comfort level, mitigation strategies, and so forth are.
Katie, can I get some clarification on the wheeling? So that is, what day is that now again? That's tomorrow, or that'd be
Thursday.
That'd be
of this week?
Thursday. So basically, every staff member has an option to get, if they want the shot, they have the option to get it on Thursday, which is
at London Middle School in Wheeling, so very, very close. Many of our staff have been going down to Tinley and all over the place to get it, so this is very convenient.
So that's March 11th. But is there any follow-up with a second vaccine associated with that, or is that the
April
Johnson?
1st.
So that would be April 1st?
Correct.
And then they need 2 weeks after that before they're considered fully,
I believe that's what the CD suggests, that it's fully in operation 2 weeks after the vaccine.
Correct.
Okay,
It
but-
takes 2 full weeks.
but they're saying that the first shot's what, 60 to 70% or 80% effective, and then it's covering the last 20%, will be the second shot?
I've heard different numbers on that. Initially, I heard that the first one was in the 60% range, but I don't recall. Katie would probably have better information.
I believe people respond differently, but there's increased effectiveness with each shot. So after the first shot, there's a certain level of effectiveness. It continues to grow. With the second shot, it continues to grow, and then 2 weeks to reach its maximum effectiveness, that 95% effectiveness rate.
Yeah, Randy, the CDC director today said you were considered fully vaccinated 2 weeks after your Pfizer or Moderna shot, second shot, or 2 weeks after your Johnson & Johnson single shot. So it's basically 2 weeks for both.
Okay. And then, so the 2 weeks, I mean, April 4th is a remote learning day as well, on that Monday, correct? No, that's
April 5th.
In-person day. And then Tuesday, the schools are closed because of the local elections. So it wouldn't be beneficial to actually start that week, because it'd be a Wednesday start and be kind of not a good start. I'm just trying to work out the calendar from my perspective. Okay. Because I just did a quick math. I mean, if we start April 12th, that basically gives these kids 7 weeks of school.
So spring break is the 22nd through the 26th.
Right.
So then we have, that would have about 2 full weeks prior to the 12th, following spring break.
Okay.
Mr. Rudolph, this is Chris, just to clarify here, so 67% of staff are vaccinated with their week or 2 week or whatever?
They've either had both shots, had one shot, or scheduled to get a shot by this Thursday, is our understanding.
Got it.
So by April 1st, we would assume 67% for sure will be fully vaccinated.
Got it.
Maureen, I have a question. Let's talk about lunch, because I know we've been talking about lunch. That was always the big hurdle for the past couple of months, has been the lunch. So right now, we're thinking 30 minutes for lunch. Are they eating in the classroom? What's that process look like?
Great question. So at the elementary level and at the junior high level, we're really trying to use common spaces as much as possible. So we're going to use gym, multipurpose room, other larger spaces to the extent possible with the 50 limit. And that is why it makes it more beneficial to have a shorter period so that we can get more kids through those common spaces during the lunch periods. That way we're having a supervisor supervising them. Let's just say it takes them 20 minutes or so to eat. Then the supervisor will take the students out of that space, either outside for a few minutes or back to the classroom for some independent, go noodle or some movement activities. And then the class would resume. So we're going to be having much more staggered lunch period than in the past. So grade levels or classes would be going at different times. And very similar at junior high. They're going to be scheduling in, building in that lunch period into the junior high blocks and using I think 3 is the max locations that are going to be used by the junior high simultaneously.
So then the teachers get their plan time. They're not supervising the lunch in their classrooms. They get the plan time. Okay.
Yeah, and if we do need to use any classrooms, what we talked about, and that would just be like only if we have a unique situation at a certain school, and maybe then we would try to, I know some schools rotate by the week, so that if I'm a teacher, I don't always have students in my classroom. I could maybe do some work during my 30 minutes in my classroom, so it's not like their classroom is always being used.
And in the past, it was 50 minutes because they would do recess, but the recess is no longer.
I mean, yeah, where we would encourage our teachers to take the kids out. I'm sure PE teachers will be taking the kids out as the weather gets nicer, but just to reduce that time to 30 minutes.
No, and I think it's good because that's been the struggle, is lunch, and what are we doing with lunch, and a lot of the questions that we get for lunch.
Yep.
So I'm glad we have a solution there.
Well, and the solution, I mean, really then for staff in the elementary, 3 o'clock is their duty-free lunch. For them, that means they could leave.
Yeah.
So that, because that is their duty-free lunch period. So it is a little bit of a win-win. They're giving up that extra time at lunchtime, but gaining that later in the day.
So Maureen, just a follow-up question on that piece too, because the one concern I have, and I have heard from teachers, especially the younger we go, is all of the more rigorous protocols these young children are following, right? The masks, the staying at your desk, less physical mobility. And then on top of that, like for those younger learners, they're having, right, 3 to 4 hours of in your seat time and may feel very ready to get energy out by lunch. So I just am concerned with the length of the day. They'll be very confined. I'm wondering what the DEA and teachers had to say about that, if they're concerned about the kids, or if we think that physical education time will address that. I'm just concerned about.
And I think there, we have when we go to this step, we'll have a longer day. So I do think teachers may say, let's take a walk outside around the school. I mean, more getting up. Honestly, that was part of the reason too for the lunch in the lunchroom. Let's get a change of scenery. Let's get up and moving. The specials, the PE teachers are eager to have PE in the gym. They have been doing that a little bit so far, again, to get kids moving and get them out of that space. So, I mean, that will be a high priority to keep the kids moving and out of that room so they're not just sitting in their desk all day long.
I have another question. So lunch, the first hurdle. The next hurdle, the teaching online and teaching the live kids at the same time. Well, we release another survey once we make another change. More parents may opt to go in person. Can it get to a point where, and I'm just throwing an option out there. If the numbers are so low for remote, to have a designated remote-only teacher for the kids that still want the remote. I'm just trying to think of every possible situation to make it a little easier for the staff to concentrate on the kids and not balance both.
I think there are some teams out there that have that situation that they could do that, or even if it was for certain subject areas. I think we would encourage and continue to encourage that. Maybe we could get that word out to schools. If you have a way, maybe during math, there's a way. The hard part is the in-person, and not trying to bring kids together. But if they have conditions in their building that would make that feasible in terms of number of sections, we have and would continue to support that. I don't think we would want to change entirely a student's teacher, because that has been something we've tried to maintain. But I think parents would be perfectly agreeable if it was for math, the teacher is going to be X, and for reading it might be the homeroom teacher.
Yeah, because I know it's very important to maintain that teacher, and we don't know what the numbers are going to look like. We could release another survey and it could stay 54%, 40%, but it could be 85%. We just don't know, of how many want to come back, plus space constraints and everything else. But just thinking out loud.
So Robert, if I could tag off of your question too, and this is, I guess, more Ross. So the extra support that we've given to the kindergarten and first grade teachers who are obviously, like all teachers, doing the remote and in-person simultaneous, like you mentioned that we've hired some long-term subs who may be like hopping and offering support where needed. So I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how many K-1 teachers have that support, how often, how many are just on their own?
Well, we have been able to, I believe, hire one long-term K-1-2 sub for all of our elementary buildings, except I think we have 2 left that we're trying to hire. Each is using them a little differently based on their class size. But as Maureen has shared, based on the new enrollment data we receive, based on staffing information that we still have, we will have to look at each building and see what is the best configuration for students and staff. The good news is we have seen some neighboring districts go through this stage before, and we have very tight networks to learn from each other. We also want to be careful we don't accidentally discriminate from students who have to stay home because they're too little to be vaccinated and they can't come here. So as much as possible, we will try to align our teachers and maintain those relationships, but works in a very smart way. And most of our grade level teams in a typical year are always working together as a team and sharing all of their students as one school. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. This hurdle from a staffing standpoint does not seem as daunting as some of the hurdles we've had moving into our first stages of hybrid.
This is Randy. I have a question for Tom. So we went to 4-day for the elementary schools so we had space availability. We went to a 5-day at Holmes Junior High because of space availability. We didn't do that for the junior high because of space availability back in February, but now we're saying we can do that based on the mitigation factors, or because of we just kind of going to limit the spacing between students a little bit more.
Correct. So both. So a little updated guidance from the CDC indicating that if your local positivity rates and cases per 100,000, if those are in green or yellow ranges, and you have mitigation strategies in place, you can decrease proximity. Now, again, the golden rule remains 6 feet, but they're indicating that you can reduce that if your local positivity rates and data within your community, not just your building, but within the zip codes, is lower.
Okay, so now I'll ask this question. Why aren't we having the junior high do that now if we're
We
really
are.
within those numbers
We
of
are.
getting the kids? I mean, I know we're talking about full day sometime after spring break, but, I'm kind of maybe taking a narrow focus of, getting some of these junior high kids back. If we're within those
Yeah,
guidelines.
we've been
now-
doing that since February 8th. So we have, Tom, what's the number?
I know we're bringing a group of like the tier 2 and tier 3 in, but.
And tier 1.
But that's half-day.
Right,
And you're
but
talking
I mean,
about full.
why can't we bring in kids in, like what we're doing at Homeless Junior High, bring them in for the 5 days at Ridge or at Grove and at Friendship?
So we are bringing kids in for 5 days.
No, but I mean, all the kids, if they want to come in for 5 days.
Because, right now, we're using 5 feet as our number right now for junior high. So we are transitioning kids back, and it is a little bit of a process, but they are continuing to bring kids back every week. So we do have kids, tier 2, tier 3, they're all back. And I believe we're now into the tier 1, bringing kids back. I don't know that we have enough space, particularly, you've been in Friendship a few times, some of those classrooms are very small. So there are space issues in some of our classrooms that won't allow that. And since kids have very unique schedules, it's not like elementary school where they just
They can
travel,
switch
they
classrooms,
travel together. So based on what math they need or some other support services, it's a lot more complex to do it at the junior high. But we have been doing it. The principals and assistant principals have been working hard every week to continue to bring more kids back. Tom, do you have some data?
Yeah, Friendship has tripled from our February meeting. How many kids are there 4 to 5 days? And Grove has actually quadrupled their numbers. So they've targeted kids, have those kids back. I think they continue to look to expand those pieces. And as a reminder to all, part of this too is that vaccination process. So that we can get staff to that point that they're vaccinated within this process.
And I want to add one more thing that I've been meaning to see is like, if you look at our district numbers, I want to thank the staff, the entire staff, the parents, and the students. I mean, our numbers are, below 0.1% kind of thing. I mean, so I think a kind of a big kudos goes to everybody, that have been working this and showed it is working. So I don't want to repeat what the CD says, be careful, do all this stuff, but I want to say, hey, keep up the good work, everybody. Keep doing that, because, you're the ones making it successful and allowing us to make the decision about expanding the full day and stuff like that. So keep up the good work.
Mr. Ulof, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, sir.
The junior highs, have you folks drilled down on the data change for cases or probable cases since we've gone 2, 3, 4x in size? Is it basis points or is it percentages?
We're following that data on a weekly basis. So as we've expanded across the board, as that slide, whatever number slide that was, has shown that we really have not seen an increase in positive cases within our structure throughout these last 9+ weeks. And the junior highs, I believe in this last iteration, the junior highs had no positive cases.
Thank you. Dr. Fessler, just to confirm, we're back from spring break on the 29th of March, correct?
Monday the 29th.
Monday the 29th. So I'm sure my fellow colleagues here can appreciate me as the yay for 5-day champion. So, I'm obviously eager, and I'm sure many parents are, and students and staff members, but we're also being cautious. Nothing you presented to me today paints a picture but sheer success and creativity and great strategy and great tactics. I would challenge my peers and everyone in the room to shift to the next logical step, beginning the 29th. The vaccine rates much higher than I would have ever estimated. I don't know about the whole herd immunity, and then there's sayings of it's 60, it's 70, it's 50, but we're almost at 70% vaccinated, not counting for folks with antibodies, et cetera, et cetera. Transmission rates in nearly 5-day junior high buildings have been, the delta from comparing one building to another is minimal. All right, we're talking basis points, we're not talking percentages. So I'm of the position that we go to that full day, still respectful of Wednesdays and processes and all those procedures, and then the step after that, call it the 12th or the 17th of April to, make Wednesday a full day as well. That's my feeling on this.
So Chris, I'll second you on that because I am incredibly impressed with the effectiveness of the mitigation strategies, and the key for me is the slide that's up right now of these percentages of cases. It is remarkably low, and I think, to Randy's point, our staff, our teachers, our principals have been doing a great job of implementing these. So I would like to see us, for the sake of parents and families who are struggling with work, with lives, I would like to see us get back to this next step sooner. So I second Chris that I'd like to see March 29th as a date for this, and then honestly as quickly thereafter, assuming the numbers continue to support, get to that final stage of 5 full days.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with my colleague Chris here. One of the because when I look at it, we're really talking about approximately 120 minutes a day. We pick up these kids at about 12:45, give or take. They would stay there till 3. Is it 3 o'clock? 3 o'clock. So that difference does make a big difference for these kids. It is a large benefit for the families to keep them there. So it's been successful. We're talking about how successful it's been. Let's capitalize on that. Let's see if we can get them in there as soon as we possibly can. So that's why I asked. Like, my first question was the April 12th question of where's that date coming from? Why did we get there? But if we can do it earlier than that, we should do it earlier than that.
I support all my colleagues on the board. I think that it's important to get kids back to school, and I think the data does stand very clearly in support of opening the schools up sooner rather than later. So I would support a return on March 29th as well.
That's 4.
I do have a question. I agree, but April 1st sounds like a day that a lot of staff may be getting their second vaccine. And I'd just be worried about a little bit of coverage that day.
Well, a couple hundred probably. Yeah.
Okay, a couple hundred out of, about 800, makes it a challenging day makes it challenging for the staff and for the, for everybody trying to manage that.
We're doing it on Thursday, though.
What?
I'm sorry. We are doing it on Thursday when they get vaccine 1, right? We're finding a way to make it work. So why couldn't we do that on
Yeah.
April 1st?
Good point.
Could I just respond,
Sure.
just because we're coordinating? So we have asked classroom teachers to schedule their appointments in the afternoon when we can be more asynchronous or small group. So if we are full day, on that day, if it's 100, 150, 200 people, however many, if we're full day, the reality is we will have to cover those classrooms, whereas now, in most cases, our staff's so great, the classroom teachers schedule themselves in the afternoon, and in the morning, people who have a little more flexibility. So just to make sure we're understood on that.
Yeah, we can coordinate it, but don't be surprised if we're doing something asynchronous just for that day to make it happen. But
Yeah, I was going to suggest we
Yeah.
just make a Wednesday or Thursday that week, if that makes it easier, right? Shift to Wednesday to Thursday, swap the days.
Yeah,
Again,
we'll-
as an alternative.
one way or another, we'll make it happen because it's obviously that important to us that we get those shots in the arms that day. So
One of the things that NSSEO just did and the board just approved this last week was to make the one day when many staff were going to be in to be vaccinated a non-attendance day. So as long as you give enough time for the board to, approve that officially, and I don't even think you need that, but we could, well, we did it because you already approve a calendar, so the board chose to approve it, but you could consider something like that if you think there's going to be so many people out.
Okay. And like I said, we'll make it happen.
Then the question about Wednesdays, Maureen, if we look at a month ago, staff could not get an appointment at all. Things changed. Next month, things are going to be very different. Most of our staff will be vaccinated. A lot of the community will be vaccinated. What is the plan going forward for Wednesdays? Are we thinking that it's always going to be a remote day until the last day in May, or are we slowly going to start ramping up? Because I think a lot of parents are going to ask that question of why are they home Wednesdays?
Yeah, I think what we could do too is look at now, the more that our staff is fully vaccinated, more staff that had to be at home due to accommodation are able to return. So when we have all those staff returned, I think we could look at the Wednesdays again, potentially. Can we still replicate those processes? Do we have, because you might remember if you have elementary students on Wednesdays, every 3 or 4 weeks, the whole grade level is released so that the teachers can meet. That requires grouping of students together from different classes, which we've been trying to limit. So we have we'll be meeting with the principals tomorrow, so we can, bring that up and see would they be able, at what point do they think they would be able to operate a typical Wednesday without it being remote? I think in my perfect world vision, I was hoping that this next phase, as we go to the full day, we could keep it, and then look, obviously, the last phase would be to go back to full in person.
One other piece to add, and Katie, please help me or correct me. As we increase one of the great things about our mitigation strategies, our schools and staff have done a great job on social distancing. As that shrinks, so as an example, if we had one positive case and I was sitting between Maureen and Katie and I was positive, they'd both have to quarantine because they'd be within 6 feet. So the reality is, and I think we've seen this in districts that have expanded their population, a lot more quarantines, not necessarily a lot more positive cases, but that's an implication of the process. More kids, smaller distance, more quarantines. Is that right, Katie?
That is correct.
Well, that kind of brings a good point. I know when we were bringing the elementary kids, sorry, Diane, did you
No,
say-
go ahead.
When we were bringing the elementary kids back to school, we gave some families notice that, hey, you will be within this kind of distance. We're going to have to do this definitely for the junior high level then, correct?
Yeah, I haven't thought about how we're going to do that, but when we report out on tonight's board meeting, we're going to share that information in our update. And then, we'll discuss how we'll do that at the junior high. It's a little trickier, again, because the junior high go to
Yeah,
so many
moving
different
around, yeah.
sections. So I don't necessarily want to send, 8 different communications per parent. But we'll figure that out because we may just have the classroom teacher of each class, send a personal communication to their entire class that this is the setup in my classroom or something of that extent. But we will, once again, update our parents. Now that we know it's going to be the 29th, we'll start working on that survey tomorrow and get that survey out to families as soon as possible. We'll also include that information in the survey as well, understanding that. I think the interesting piece that the more we talk about the 4 to 5 days at the elementary is that it could impact parent decisions. So, Maureen, can we run 5 days at elementary, or is it? I understand that it would impact what we're doing with some of the MTSS and child support. So there are going to be some losses in terms of the way we're supporting our students. So that's the big concern.
I would like to maybe talk to Katie a little bit about that because just to make sure, can we accommodate what we need to with the MTSS process? And then the principals are great at being creative at how would we find that additional plan time. I don't think we want to reduce, or we want to make sure we can maintain the contractual amount of plan time.
So what I will do in the survey is that we'll present it both ways. If it's 4 days, would you attend? If it's 5 days, would you attend? Thinking that we may transition in mid-April from 4 to 5. and then give elementary parents perhaps another opportunity for the last 6 weeks. But we'll talk through that. In all of our conversations, though, we had thought that was really important, that we maintain that opportunity to really do child find and child support on that Wednesday, and also honor those contractual obligations we have.
I also want to add, just to reiterate, with quarantines and isolations, and as we talk about bringing our kids back as quickly as possible for as much time as possible, as we increase and we have parents that want to return to in-person instruction, that will significantly impact those numbers of students who have to quarantine if in close contact to a positive case. And quarantine and isolation requirements are one of those 5 key mitigation factors that everybody is in agreement on, CDC, IDPH, CCDPH, that we have to maintain that 14-day quarantine for our students who are in close contact. So it's just a consideration that we need to know and be aware of, and we want parents to be aware of as we go into that as we have more students come back and that distance lessens, we have more probability that we'll have quarantines for 14 days for close contact. And that is with or without vaccines, with masks on, without masks on, all of those things, 14 days still stays the same.
That's certainly, a consideration. However, when we look at the continuing decline in the rates of infection in the community, we're under 4% now, and less than 100 cases per 100,000. So I think that unless one of these new variants becomes a concern, I think we're going to be in a pretty good place, and that hopefully those rates will continue to decline in our schools, where we won't be seeing children having to stay home.
Yes.
The sorry, I'm hogging the mic. Two questions. If Ann is on, are there any comments, anything like that Ann would like to share as we discuss here?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Robert?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, I think our concern was keeping Wednesdays for the elementary for the contractual purpose, the afternoon, and then the other concern was waiting for the shots to kick in. Those were our 2 big key issues that the association was counting on, or hoping for, I should say.
Sounds reasonable.
And the vaccines, that was one of my biggest things, was making sure that the whole district, that the teachers and everything were able to be vaccinated, and that would be a big deal. And that seems to be coming to fruition. I have just one question. Why, and it has to do, Maureen, it's probably to you. Why are we doing a block schedule?
We've been doing a block schedule all year. And primarily, one of the main reasons is that we know it's very hard to do 9 periods a day while in remote learning. Even, we have half our students remote right now. And then the students that are in person, it reduces the amount of transition and, contact tracing that would be required, because they're only going to 4 places instead of 8 or 9 in a day.
And thanks, Maureen. And one last thing, are we going to be able to, I know you said you're going to be working on the spacing and everything into junior highs, because I think the elementaries, as long as we keep that Wednesday for them, because God love them, those teachers that teach all those subjects. I mean, I taught social studies all day. I can't imagine what it's like trying to keep little ones occupied and teaching all the different subject matter. So keeping that Wednesday for those teachers, I think, is vital, and also making sure they have the support that they need. But I'm concerned still about the spacing at the junior high.
I have the same concerns that you have in both cases. I agree with you, Patty.
And with Ann's comment, on the survey that we do send, are we asking how many of our staff have received their second vaccine, or is it only just the first?
So we have options for staff to respond that they have They have not been able to schedule, and they need a vaccine. Those are the staff that we emailed multiple times today for the clinic. That they have had one shot and need their second, that they have had 2 shots, that they've had 1 shot with the Johnson & Johnson dose so that they're completed, and that at this time they do not want to receive one. So those are the options.
So we're, once again, another update. Now we have 91 staff who have had both shots. So that's increasing by the second, and we have 451. A majority of those, a large percentage, will get their second shots this week. That's when we had that big Tinley Park group.
So what I heard from the board is that we'll start on the 29th. We'll do a survey and share data with you as soon as we get that out. So we'll have a planning meeting tomorrow with our SLT. Part of that plan team is also Ann Wing, so she sets in and provides feedback, which has been quite valuable to the process. And then we'll organize the survey, a timeline, and I'll share that with the board as soon as we have that information. So most likely at the latest Wednesday afternoon, I'll update you on that.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item 6.02, discussion of elementary math resources.
All right, Maureen and her team.
All right, I
Led
will
by
get us
Nicole.
started while Nicole and Michelle, just in case you haven't formally met, since we haven't met in person so much, Michelle Benages, our math facilitator, Nicole Robinson, our executive director of curriculum and instruction. So we're going to team up for this sharing today. We are going to we're very excited, but we're going to try to just stick to the nuts and bolts. And just talk a little bit about the process that we followed, the outcome, and our next steps. So that's our goal today. And some of this will be a little bit of a repeat for you. Last year you approved the Phase 1 recommendations of iReady and Number Corner. We've been using those all year, getting started with that. Last year at this time, we were approaching the Phase 2 recommendation, the core resource. And we were really divided. We had, not a clear consensus of our pilot team. We were going to dig deeper into that, and then literally, I think we had a meeting scheduled for March 17th, had to be canceled. At that point, it really didn't make sense to keep going, not knowing what this year would bring. Our teachers would have really struggled with an entire brand-new core math resource. We were able to use a core resource from the Ready curriculum so that teachers had what they needed. But we dug back into the Phase 2 resources. We are committed to securing a high-quality core math resource for our students that will start next year. So our team got back together in November. We gathered input from the pilot team members. Said, hey, we know we can't approach this the way we always have. Teachers are busy, we can't get together. How do we want to go about this? The other interesting piece was that since last year, a new core math resource became available. In fact, our pilot team sort of looked at it last year, but they didn't have enough for us to look at to make it worthwhile. The majority of the pilot teachers said, hey, take a look. It can't hurt. Let's see what's out there. We've got Bridges and Ready in the wings. Let's see what this other resource looks like. It was called Illustrative Math. So in December, we kind of regrouped, formed a new team, some pilot teachers, some non-pilot teachers, since Illustrative Math was going to be brand new. January and February, over those 8 weeks, this team became very close and spent, collective 400 hours working on this project, and culminated in really just last week. You get the hot off the press information. So that's kind of our process. Just to recap though, what we have right now, we have iReady, a supplemental resource that gives us diagnostic assessments and a personalized path. At K2, we have Number Corner, and then we were kind of the question we were wrestling with the team was Illustrative Math or K5 Ready Classroom. We put aside Bridges for just a moment when we got started with this, and thought, let's look at these two. Comparing two resources was already a pretty heavy lift to add a third in the very beginning would have been pretty challenging. So this is where we were in our decision-making. And again, I want to credit Michelle specifically for this. Every meeting, she reminded the whole team of our long-term goal, which really helped us. This is not about today, what do we pick? We want a wonderful solution for long-term that really helps us give our kids powerful math learning experiences across the district. So thanks, Michelle. They're constant reminders. Here are some of the smiling faces. I think this was the last meeting, so they were pretty happy that we had come to a conclusion and a recommendation. So there are the faces, and here are the names, just so you could see. This was our team. We started with 15, and I think we had one person that was just, and like we said to the whole team, life happens. This is a challenging year, so we gave a lot of grace and patience to the team. Here are the drivers that they used in the evaluation process. These probably look very familiar because they're the same drivers we used last year. We kept everything the same, so our criteria was the same, what we were looking for in the resource remained the same. Our process, or did I go oh, here we go. I think I went too far. Our process was a little unprecedented, I'll use that word. We couldn't do a typical pilot like we did last year. So this team, smaller team, just because of what we were juggling, they met 1.5 hours together. We met 1.5 hours live each week, and then had 3 hours of asynchronous work each week. We chose one driver and said, okay, the homework for this week is to really dig into both these resources related to this driver. And then we got together and talked about it, and then moved to the next driver the next week. The process, the feedback on the process was very positive, and even those of us that were on the team last year said, we feel like we know these resources better than even last year. Of course, our team members, even though piloting wasn't a piece of it, many of them did try it out or worked with teachers that tried it out. So we got that kind of in the field experience a little bit. So it was a great process. Some of the pros were that we got to know the resource very well. The challenges were the time. That was tough. Teachers have a lot on their plate, so those 14 people that added this to their plate really are to be commended. And then just given the situation, not being able to have a larger group made it a little bit more challenging as well. But those were the process, and I want to show you just a little bit of what it looked like. Not that you would necessarily be able to read this, but this is the detail of the homework that the team members did. So here you can see one of the drivers. This one was access and equity. They would make their claims about each resource and then evidence. And then each team member did this each week. So a lot of work. Some teamed up together. They made sub-teams and did it together. Others, said, I'd like to do mine on Sunday morning, so I'm going to do it myself. The beauty of asynchronous work, they could choose the time. So this is just an example of the work they did. And this is an example of how we came to consensus each week on how we were going to rate each of the resources, ready in illustrative math. So I just wanted to give you a glimpse of the detail. This was not just a quick process where we just took a brief look and chose something. It was really quite in-depth, and you're about to hear what the outcome was. And I'm going to turn it over to Nicole. If you can imagine a drum roll,
please.
And I'll give you that too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we were most excited that it was a unanimous decision. The entire team, once we went through this process, did individually rate each driver. So what we did when we met weekly is we met primary and intermediate, and we rated the alignment of each resource to each driver. But in this, at the end of the process, we wanted to hear individuals' voices. So we heard from each teacher individually, each staff member, on their opinion of the alignment to the drivers. And while both resources were aligned in certain ways, illustrative math was clearly the winner when we saw high alignment in almost every single driver. And in the drivers that were not necessarily highly aligned, it was very easy for us to see how we could make small adjustments to fit within our needs. Also, just the enthusiasm behind that picture was taken with our big smiles. It was very different than the way we ended last year's. Well, we didn't really get to end it because of the pandemic, but the way we felt about last year. And so, one team member who was on the pilot committee last year said, this process that we went through really was a blessing, because she felt like leaving this process, she could say to a colleague who said, why didn't you choose Ready Math? She could really go into the very specific, detailed information of why it is not the right resource for our students in our context and why illustrative math is. It really was a great process for that. So, unanimous and enthusiastic alignment for the illustrative math, and I'm going to let Michelle, our expert here, talk a little bit about illustrative math, and then I'll follow up with next steps. Yeah.
I think you missed, we did put a couple of the comments from our team members here. I'll just kind of click through and you can see that, it was very apparent to all of us that throughout the process, illustrative math was one that we felt would be really the best fit for our students and our teachers, and really building, our mathematicians in our K-5 level and potentially beyond. So without further ado, we've been talking so highly about illustrative math that I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you more the math resource that our team highly recommends for our students in District 59. I will like to highlight with you tonight some of the components and structures in the Illustrative Math K-5 version 1 curriculum. I have included here their vision. The vision, as you can see here, is to create a world where all learners know, use, and enjoy mathematics. And this was something that our team felt was very evident across all of our drivers during our weekly exploration time when we would compare each resource against each other. And to do this, Illustrative Math has really created at the heart of their program a coherent and aligned math experience for both teachers and our students that is positive, engaging, and fun. Those that tried to implement some of the lessons, students wanted more and teachers wanted more. And so that felt really good, even though, as Maureen and Nicole had shared, it wasn't an expectation, but it was something that was very apparent to all. So within this presentation, I'm going to share with you some of the background around illustrative math, highlight the features within the curriculum that would assist in advancing our students' mathematical understanding, and walk through what a typical student and teacher experience within their strategic lesson design. And finally, I'll hand it off to Nicole to share our next steps and what that would look like as an implementation process. All right, so the background of illustrative math. As children arrive in elementary school, eager to learn math, it's our duty as teachers and leaders to want to provide them with the best possible foundation for the next grade and beyond. And the IM K-5 Math offers an engaging yet inclusive approach to mathematics, giving all students that opportunity to really build their math skills, their understandings and practices that will stay with them for a lifetime. And so here are some unique elements about illustrative math that's worth sharing with you tonight. What makes them unique is that they had an impressive expert author team create the curriculum. And beyond that, they actually provide the professional learning for the teachers. Therefore, our teachers would be getting professional learning from the IM team themselves. That's just beyond navigating the platform. Therefore, having a focus on the intentional practices and routines embedded in the curriculum with student learning at the forefront. Therefore, hopefully making that the teachers feel comfortable and confident in implementing these practices and experiences into their classroom with their students. The curriculum is also designed and structured around the Common Core standards. That progression of the standards is built with a problem-based approach, which I will talk to you further about as part of the highlights. You'll also notice that there's the Learn Zillion on here as well, and I'd like to share a little bit more around that. Learn Zillion is a certified partner of Illustrative Math curriculum. Therefore, by going through the Learn Zillion platform, we would be able to access this curriculum in both digital and print capabilities, therefore providing our teachers with printed teacher guides and student workbooks, if that is something that we're able to move forward with. And just being able to provide the curriculum in a variety of new, innovative ways. So here are some highlights of Illustrative Math. They have developed a very coherent scope and sequence within the curriculum that really builds within and across the grades, allowing for the progression of the standards to evolve within grade level units and across, connecting. We found this was a very apparent process that they had built within the curriculum, really allowing the time and space for students to learn about these deep conceptual understandings that students need to process that. Every routine, activity, and lesson has a place in that story across the units and grade levels, and really help provide that experience for students. There are many equitable teaching structures and practices that are embedded in the curriculum. Culturally diverse contexts, which they phrased as windows and mirrors, something that we investigated as one of our drivers, and we really saw it apparent with Illustrative Math. Windows and mirrors means that it provides opportunities for students to not only see themselves in the math that they are doing, but to learn about each other. This too was something that was really apparent to us as a team. This mindset is interwoven in the daily lessons, which in turn creates a very positive experience for our students in math, something I don't feel I had an opportunity to do when I was younger. Mathematical discourse is the norm. That places the students at the center point of the thinking and the talking in the classroom, where the students are the ones actually doing the math and doing the learning. There are guidance structures to help support those teachers in doing so. Therefore, creating that mathematical conversation with very explicit and well thought out questions that are embedded to help build that community of learners in the classroom. There are multiple entry points, meaning that students have equitable and access within any task and daily lesson, providing students to really bring their whole selves to the math community. You'll also see that they have included strategies to address unfinished learning. That's our reality now. To support teachers in planning for unfinished learning, Illustrative Math created a unit adaptation pack, providing continuous support within each grade level's unit planning guide. Each unit of each grade level is provided an adaptation pack with a video to support for teachers, walking through the curriculum on how to adapt to address unfinished learning. They've added lessons to support just-in-time learning, so that knowing students at the major work of each grade level, taking time in addressing what could be connected from the prior grade level built into that unit. As I mentioned before, that Illustrative Math is a problem-based lesson structure. This is where students learn math as a result of solving problems, probably unlike the way we were taught. The mathematical ideas are the outcomes of the problem-solving experience rather than the elements that must be taught before problem solving. In a classroom, this would look like students having an invitation and accessible entry points to the problems. Students are working on activities both individually and in groups, allowing students time and space to think and reason about problems before even taking part of a whole group discussion. There's a consistent design of daily lessons from warm-ups to cool-downs with engaging tasks in between. And I'll be sure to highlight those features with examples from the curriculum in the future slide. Additionally, the Illustrative Math K-5 curriculum includes K-5 centers. This structure supports independent, differentiated practice, exploration, and development of grade level fluency. That takes time over the course of the year. In order to support students across the curriculum, one of the first ways Illustrative Math does this within each grade level at K-5 is to build math communities in the classroom. These lessons are built within Unit 1 of every grade level, having opportunities to set norms and expectations while doing math together in the classroom throughout the year. IM supports students in bringing in their prior experiences through warm-ups that are all high-impact instructional routines. These help enhance and engage students in developing strong habits of mathematics. Now, as I've kind of talked through all the different highlights, you may have noticed a pattern here. With all of these featured highlights mentioned, Illustrative Math always puts students first. They have built that within the foundation of this curriculum, and it's within all the structures and design principles. And that was something that we noticed was an extremely big difference between resources in this process. Some additional features of Illustrative Math that we would like to point out to you is that through the LearnZillion platform, that would allow us to access the Illustrative Math curriculum in both print and digital components. It is user-friendly for our staff. As I had mentioned before, staff members were able to easily pick up this resource and implement it with ease. Teachers that were tapped on the shoulder to try and give it a try from some of the team members of our evaluation team found that teachers were able to do it instantly and were excited about it. IM not only offers professional learning experiences, but it has embedded teacher learning within that curriculum to help build confidence in our teachers. Our K-5 teachers are taking on multiple contents. In math, Common Core standards have evolved and changed from when we were in the classroom as students. Therefore, this curriculum does provide that teacher learning within the curriculum. There are teacher reflection questions built in, embedded curriculum narratives, and even a PLC framework continuously supporting teacher learning in our grade level teams. There are many formative assessments to address student outcomes and just-in-time learning. They have pre-unit problems, staged centers, daily cool-downs, monitoring sheets, and section quizzes that will equip the teachers to easily monitor and guide student progress with the ease of the LearnZillion platform. All of these assessment tools are able to be digitally pushed out to students, and it is already accessible, the results. They have supports for English language learners and students with disabilities with specific routines and supports embedded within each lesson. They also provide Spanish translation materials for students in both print and digital. At this time now, I'm going to walk through the very strategic lesson design. IM has designed an overarching lesson structure of invitation. This means that every lesson begins with an invitation to the math, a deep study of concepts, and then consolidating and applying their learning. And this plays out throughout each grade level's course, unit, and activity level. You can see here the daily lesson structure. On the left, you see the K1 structure, and to the right, you see the grade 2 through 5. Here, you'll notice that the same components are interwoven throughout. Warm-up, activity synthesis, moving into a lesson synthesis, cool down, and centers. At this time now, I'm going to walk you through what it would look like within the Learn Zillion platform. Here you'll notice, this would be from the teacher's end, that you'll notice right off the bat, if you look right above the word warm-up, above the slide, it says card 5 of 27. I'm not going to take you through all 27 cards, but that is noted that these are specific features that Learn Zillion has taken from the IM curriculum and have already embedded these slides for students to go ahead and turn around this curriculum into the classroom. So from here, you'll see this is a warm-up, one of the 8 routines that are built into the curriculum. This is a notice and wonder, and off to the right there, you'll see teacher notes. This would also be part of the teacher guide, but just kind of giving that guidance along the way. Students are able to notice and wonder. Again, it's that invitation to the math easily by just looking at that picture and talking about some noticings and wonderings. With a quick click, this could be turned full screen for students, and all the teacher notes are hidden from the students, so they can just focus on the image. Following that warm-up, there's a synthesis. This allows students to really consolidate any of their noticings and wonderings around what could be related to multiplication from that image. We move into an activity. And again, I didn't incorporate all of the slides within there, but in this case here, you'll see that students are able to take math and apply it from a graph. Again, this is a 3rd grade experience where they're asked to take a look at and show how the diagram, that diagram there with the circles and the groups of circles, along with that last column in the graph of marathon winners, how those are related. Here, they're having an opportunity to synthesize. Again, just showing and showcasing that math discourse is a norm. Students are able to share any of their work from the activity and really make connections between their thinking. Moving into another activity, again, this could be something where students are working as partners, small group, where they're given a card sort. Card sorts are a really great routine in practice within the classroom where students are able to kind of grapple with all the different cards, sort them as they see them, and share out and be able to categorize them, how they were able to sort them. And again, that opportunity in the end to share what their group did and how they did that. There's also extensions for those to continue practicing and working. So here you can see once they're done, they're able to also create drawings and diagrams for these situations. Again, continuously practicing the early concepts of multiplication. As we move into the lesson synthesis, this is where students are really able to consolidate that understanding of what they had worked within the activities and lessons. Here you can see where they're taking this phrase of 4 groups and 5 in each group and how it's related to that equation, expression in multiplication, as well as extending and how it relates to that representation tape diagram. There's opportunities to build academic language and vocabulary, as well as then end and consolidate and apply that learning to a cool down. These cool downs are meant to be a formative assessment. Again, could be pushed out digitally through the Learn Zillion platform and able to record any of their thinking, voice, and their work digitally, and or paper is an option, of course. Here, I would like to showcase, we had, as we said, it was not an expectation for teachers or any of our team members to give this a try, but they did, and they shared because they were excited and they wanted to showcase some of the examples. And so we're going to do that with you today. They're short, I promise. But going forward here, these were students that, while it's a different topic, it's on fractions. It's a third grade group, and it's on early fraction.
I know that the first diagram shows 6 because there are 6 equal squares, and the second diagram is labeled 1/6 because only one square out of all 6 squares in the rectangle are shaded.
So again, short, but you can really hear students thinking and how they applied some of that learning from that day's lesson. And the other one I would really like to show too is because it allows you to see students work through the process.
The first thing I did was I labeled this top diagram and I put 1 out of 8. How do I know to put 8 on the bottom? Well, there is 8 squares, so I do to put 8 on the bottom. And then I partitioned this rectangle, and now I'm going to shade the rectangle to show 1 out of 4.
Just like me. Oh, try that again.
What's nice about this is you can see students working and not just get the end result.
And then inside of it, I can just write 1 out of 4. And
All right, so thank you so much for listening to more around illustrative math. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Nicole to speak to next steps.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, I told you she was our expert. She knows that resource, both resources in and out. So thank you, Michelle, for taking the time to walk us through that. So once we get, hopefully, the approval to move forward with this resource, that's when the real work begins, because an implementation of a new resource is very important. We only have one shot to roll this out, and we have 210 K-5 teachers ready and wanting this new resource. So here are some of the things that we are considering and the work that we have in front of us. The first thing, I just kind of labeled it curricular integration. That's integration into our system. So we will have to do some customization to tailor to meet our needs. An example of that would be adding additional language supports that we know. So part of our kind of trademark in the district is to make sure that we have language bends and language-specific oracy building lessons within every unit that our teachers deliver. So we will include that and add that into this resource, even though it already has amazing resources for our language learners. Also, making sure that we have a good plan for integrating with the other newly adopted resources, the iReady and the Number Corner, so that our teachers understand how and when these work together. And then, of course, we'll have to align our scope and sequence documents to the new resource to make sure that we have everything updated for our teachers. Next would be junior high discussions. So as you know, this is adoption of a K-5 resource at this time, but we are happy to say that our 6-8 math teachers are using Open Up resource. This Illustrative Math through LearnZillion is an enhanced and updated version of that curriculum resource that our 6-8 teachers are already using. So we'll want to get their input and their feedback on whether they want to continue with the Open Up resource or they want to transfer over to this more enhanced version. So that will be upcoming discussions with administrators and staff at the junior highs. Communication to our stakeholders, of course, will be key, so we'll have a communication plan for that, what parents and families can expect, what our teachers will be able to expect. That will all be forthcoming. And then, of course, the implementation and the professional learning plan, which would begin this spring and go throughout at least the first year of implementation, and if not, moving forward into a second year. All right. Several of us in the administrative leadership team have been participating in an online course with a book by Peter DeWitt, Instructional Leadership. And so I was just reading the implementation chapter, just happened to read it last week, and saw this quote, and it really spoke to me about what we have in front of us with the adoption of a new resource. And Stephen Cox said, implementation is the gateway to scalability. We have, as I said, 210 teachers who teach in different programs, dual language, one-way, two-way, Spanish, Polish, Gen Ed, ESL, supports, and we need to be able to implement this to scale, which means that students in any classroom, in any school, in any program are going to get high quality curriculum taught in a way that it's best designed to be taught, and that our teachers across those contexts will be able to understand those solid math routines and processes that is going to be required of them. And so that's what supports do our teachers need to be able to teach this to students and give them what they need at the time they need it in the best and most effective way. So that ongoing professional learning will be provided not only by illustrative math authors, but also by our math team. We'll also have targeted professional learning for our administrators and our coaches to be able to support the day-to-day implementation. Also, so that our administrators and those who are giving feedback informally and formally through the evaluation process understand what to look for, what are best practices in math instruction, and how to help coach our teachers up to meet those demands for students, and what outcomes they're looking for. What should the data be that we're looking for to say that this is an effective program and that we are meeting our students' needs in whatever demographic group, whatever program, whatever school and grade level. We're looking for equitable outcomes, so that's what we'll be focused on as we go through the implementation, and then just assessing if the resource is meeting our needs. I think that is everything that I had. Briefly, I did want to just share with you what our recommendation for purchase is before asking if you had any questions for us. So as we have discussed, there are digital and print resources that we'd like to purchase. Our committee did recommend the purchase of both print and digital. So here we have student licenses. Those are $19 per student with the annual cost of $71,000 and some change. The teacher manuals would be a one-time cost unless we have additional sections or whatever in the future, but it would be a one-time cost for most, about $10,000. And then our student print materials would be another annual cost of about $95,000. And again, our committee recommended that, at least moving forward in this first year, and we'll revisit that to see if that's a continued recommendation. The professional learning cost has not been included here. And also, we know we're going to need to replenish our math manipulatives at all grades. As you know, we repurposed our classroom math manipulatives, sent them home for students to be able to use as they were doing remote learning. So we will need to replenish that. And then, of course, renewing our license with iReady, and then possibly additional number corner materials. So this is the approximate cost for this resource, but just knowing there's a few other resources that may be necessary. So that is our recommendation, and at this time, we just want to thank you for your time and ask if you have any questions for us.
I am really, really thrilled at everything I've heard about this, and I'm really grateful for the deep dive that you all took and the commitment and the teachers that were willing to dive into this. I had a question about the budget. Is it true, and I've heard this before, that there is money in the budget to support this, so that it's not going to be an additional cost beyond what we already have?
Yeah, that is correct. This is all already budgeted, and we'll need to budget for next year.
Sure.
But yes, this is already, we had reserved these funds last year, and when we didn't purchase, we were able to access those funds this year.
I really, really like that it has the formative assessment at different times for just-in-time learning, that it seems to be very rich and engaging, and that there's so many teachers' supports embedded in it. It's very clear, and that it is easy for them to implement. So I think this is a win-win for everybody, and I like your planfulness and the way you plan to implement it and roll it out and provide supports for staff over the course of 1 or 2 years, whatever it takes, to make sure that everybody's comfortable, the kids are learning, that it's equitable across all these groups. I think this is an extraordinary resource, and I can't wait to learn more about it. And I really applaud all of you and your team for the work that you've done. Other comments?
Yeah, as if that wasn't enough warranted praise, I'm going to add to it. Honestly, this is one of the most satisfying days for me as a board member, because this is really an element that I was waiting for and hoping to see us really find something that aligned with our drivers.
Yes.
And I thank you for devoting over 400 hours to map all that out in such detail, because it's evident to me that the work that this team performed was so thorough. And I'm just excited that we're offering our kids an opportunity to delve into a resource that's going to excite them about mathematics, they're going to have fun with, and they're also going to feel, I think, such a sense of confidence that they can speak the language of mathematics, which honestly is huge. So I really want to thank all three of you and Maureen for persevering in this, and the team that devoted time to it, because I think this is going to serve us well for years to come. And a question that I have, so it sounds like at this stage, Number Corner is our K-2 resource, and that's going to, I think, build some foundational skills. Then we have the iReady diagnostic assessment. I was also excited to hear that this does have the robust assessment, so I'm wondering how you foresee those two matching up, like the iReady assessment versus the Illustrative Math assessment. Do we need them both? Do we think we might move away from iReady in favor of this, or do we think they serve different purposes and are both useful?
Yeah, right now we see them as serving different purposes. Right now, our iReady is not only a diagnostic, but can be used for our universal screener as well. So we give the iReady assessment in math 3 times a year, and then we're using that not only to provide that individualized learning path that they can access at home or from anywhere, but also to make sure that we're scooping up those children who need a little additional support and using that in the MTSS process as well. So that is that's that. Within the Illustrative Math resource is more the formative, day-to-day, informing my instruction for tomorrow. What do I need to do with my small groups? Michelle, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I would add to that would be that iReady, is adaptive. And so, the Illustrative Math does provide feedback and data for teachers around grade level content standards to really help support and drive where they're at in their learning for that specific unit.
So it
Whether in the
has a
beginning-
formative element that the iReady doesn't have, so.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and,
I just want to say thank you very much. I feel like we're headed in the right direction. And I so appreciate all the hard work you guys put into this. And I'm starting to breathe a sigh of relief.
Yay.
To Maureen's credit, we've been looking for math resources for 6 years now.
Mardell, wait a minute. Mardell, hold on a minute. Mardell? Mardell, just a minute.
Hold on one moment.
Just a
please.
minute. Dr. Fessler was speaking. Go
I
ahead.
was just saying, to Maureen's credit, we've been looking for math resources for 6 years and haven't compromised. And the illustrative was one that we have been waiting on for a couple of years. We've been aware of it, and finally, it's available this year. So it worked out well last year that we didn't make an advancement for a math primary and that we were able to hold off and get this. So it's pretty exciting because it reinforces a lot of that application-based learning, gets kids very excited about math, wanting to be mathematicians. So that was an important element of the choice as well.
Well, in last year, it just goes to show that, you know, the teachers couldn't come to any sort of agreement because there were too many limitations for both products. Mardell, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we knew when you started with this that we could not get consensus from the teachers, and obviously the already wasn't what we really needed. I think this will be much better. However, I was just questioning, a lot of people over the last 4 months or so have been talking about the basics. What exactly in the form of basics are we going to be teaching in math? Because you said we had both things online and in paper. Are we teaching addition, subtraction, multiplication, square roots, division, averages, percentages? Are we teaching any of this the old-fashioned learn it, do it, keep working on it, and so forth, learn it way?
Mardell, I would say those are all
Yes.
part of the Common Core standards, and
I
we,
hear you.
go ahead, Michelle, if you're closer.
Yeah, you're closer.
As Maureen was saying, that those are really all part of the Common Core standards, and it was really evident throughout the rigor of the standards, really allowing students that opportunity to build a foundation of these conceptual understandings at the root in the elementary level, and allowing that to spiral and continue on, as we know, that continues throughout junior high and beyond.
And Mardell, I would say that our team members indicated that there was such a great balance between skills and application. We have both in these resources. So you'll see that for sure.
I think that if you do that, I think you will gain a lot of more support from the parents who have not been happy with what their children had this past year. So I think that's a good improvement.
Thank you.
And if I could just make a real quick comment, or one, I think the enthusiasm for the program really comes out, and even in Maureen's weekly updates, you could see like, well, I want to see what they're talking about. What is this? It's like, but and you guys are the experts, and if there's a unanimous decision, enthusiasm, I'm all for it. I like the way that the kids. Yeah, for the parents at home that couldn't see, it said, explain it like you're on YouTube. You know what I mean? And it really hits these kids today, and we need to, whatever way to communicate effectively with them to help them understand it, let's do it, so.
Yep. Thank you.
So you can't see it, but I do have a big smile on my face. And part of that was because, I talked to Maureen before the meeting a little bit, and she kind of shared the enthusiasm the staff had about it, so I'm really cool about that. And what I really do like about that is that this could be something that would be used K through 8. And what I like about that is that the students are familiar with, this is this part, this is this part, and if we're not jumping between different types of math, curriculum, we have one curriculum for K through 8, that there will be the familiarization with it from year to year, which I really like, and the continuity of that. So you got my thumbs up.
Man, I wish I could go back to school and learn math this way. It's so much more fun. No, it's never.
You can join us.
All right, sounds good. Any other comments?
No,
before we
actually,
move
quick
on?
question. When we look, let's talk about costs. What is the life cycle of a resource like this? If we're talking, about 160 grand a year, are we thinking the next 5 years? Is it cheaper to buy multi-year licenses? What's the thought?
So that's unfortunately, everything's negotiable, and I think if a district would commit to long-term licensure, I'm sure that they would be willing to negotiate that and at reduced price. But most companies now are, they're not just status quo. So each year they're making updates, they're making revisions, making things better. The companies that we work have been awesome and amazing about listening to our feedback, making adjustments. So I would anticipate that Illustrative Math, especially since they're just launching, will be doing much of that. And to keep themselves attractive, I think they will update regularly. But I've heard Janice mention that the new superintendent's going to put some adoption cycles in place. So I think there will be structures, very clear structures for what adoption cycles and review cycles look like in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is a very small discount for multi-year, but I think for Illustrative Math, we had to commit to like 4 or more years to get that very small discount. So, but we'll work with Ron to see, it might make sense financially to just do 2 years, just so we don't have to worry about it next year. We did that with STEM scopes last year. We paid for 2. So it might be nice to get them on alternating years so that all the expenses are evened out. But that is pretty typical now. Used to be you'd spend, $500,000 or $600,000 and you'd have that for 10 years. Now most companies have gone to this annual license. But the benefit is it's not outdated the minute you buy it.
Right. So that's the advantage of the whole tech base. But if you have any other questions, please submit them to me. I'll answer them right away. As you guys know, we have a really, really long agenda, a lot of stuff to get through. I did get some good news, though. Katie had sent me an email real quick during the presentation indicating that our food service people had not qualified under 1B. So I actually texted Mike Conley, who's the superintendent at Wheeling, and he said he'd be happy to provide vaccinations for those staff as well. Yay. So he said to date they've used 800 of their 1,600, which means that there are enough vaccines for our staff if they get on and register today. So I know Katie's back there sending out communications right now. So a pleasant and good news update for us as well.
Great.
So
Good news. Thank you.
thank you, ladies.
Thank you, ladies.
Very much. Okay, yeah, we do have an awful lot on the agenda, so let's keep moving through. 6.03 is a discussion of the refuse recycling service.
Go ahead, Ron.
So, district administration has traditionally asked the board, that's the wrong one, I'm sorry. The bid was sent out to 6 vendors for recycling, as well as for refuse. And we were looking for a pickup for pretty much a 1-year term, but then there was an option for the 2 additional 1-year renewals upon our satisfaction. The terms of the agreement should be through this coming fiscal year, and what it will do is only go up by the consumer price index that we follow through the levy if we were to renew for the next 2 years. We have been using Republic Services. They came in as the low bidder out of the 4, and in fact, 2 of them didn't even turn in a bid bond, so we had to throw them out anyways. But Republic was still the lowest one. Again, it's for a monthly total of $4,759.06 per month, and it's just one of those bids that we do just to ensure that things are taken care of in the district.
So you're recommending Republic?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by the board?
I just know that we've been really happy with their services in the past, and so I'm really glad that they came in at the lowest so we could continue with them.
Another question on cost, is the $47.59 based on a 1-year contract with the 2 auto renewals, and would it be cheaper if it was a 3-year contract with auto renewals after that?
When we asked for it, there wasn't going to be necessarily anything cheaper because they were going to go for CPI regardless.
Okay.
And that, if anything, that kind of locks them in because we always like the price being at about what the levy would be so that any increase we see in tax revenues, they see as well.
And I mean, we're talking what, like 1.3% a year increase, something.
I think it's 1.4 this year.
Sure. Okay. That's fine.
Thank you, that looks really good. Any other questions or comments about that? Okay, it'll be returning for action at our next board meeting. Then we'll move on to 6.04, discussion of PTAB authorization to intervene on assessment appeals. And again, that's Ron.
That's me. I'll keep this one real short. So district administration has traditionally asked the board for permission to intervene on appeals via this authorization. Typically, the district has 30 days to intervene, but the turnaround time is insufficient to go through the process if we were to wait until the next board meeting. And we have many examples of this happening, especially with COVID times and the industry and commercials. So we're asking that we get the year-long approval that we can actually intervene if needed.
Sure.
Are there questions as to what this is referring to? I'm not sure that everybody on the board has experience with PTAB and what an appeal is.
Sure. So for an example, we do have one particular that is currently happening in the technology park, and it's looking to be where they're asking for half of the amount of what their EAV would be. So what they're doing is they're going to the appeals board for that. Now, we have an option whether or not to attempt to, I wouldn't want to say fight it, but to maybe work or negotiate, because that's most times how these things handle. Because if we were to sit and not do anything and they were to win the appeals, we would most likely refund approximately $1 million. This is the biggest one I've ever seen.
There's, in the background information, there's, I think, a good, clear definition of actually what it is. Ron just provided an example, but this is the rights. And as you know, the school districts can intervene, and we have on many times, oftentimes, we also partner with District 214 to share expenses, legal expenses. If PTABs, generally, most of them are settled if they think that they have some leverage or a case to build around a refund, and there's typically a settlement to avoid additional legal cases, but we have very little leverage in the appeal process.
Historically, Ron, this actually isn't that big compared to what was happening and why we had that debt service extension base referendum to stabilize the funding, because this was happening and it was coming back with 1.4 million given back to properties that had protested their assessments. So this is definitely in our favor to make sure that we stay on top of this and provide the authorization to intervene so that we aren't giving away more tax money than we need to.
So I'll just add one more thing. I know Ron has mentioned to me in the past that this is very hard for them to find that stuff. And I know there's some bills in the state this year that are making that much easier. So hopefully, we won't find out things last minute. So there's some notifications that are starting to be, that are in the state right now to do that. But, I think this is a great idea, giving them the authorization to take care of this without asking us for permission.
Well, that's really good to know.
So
Thank you.
the other piece, just to be clear, is that in these cases, we may, if we've already received the dollars, we have an obligation to refund. But in the aftermath, whatever our levy is, the school districts are entitled to those dollars. So those dollars shift from one taxing body to another. So if one company is paying less, then that's spread out to other companies
Correct.
and other homeowners. So
Correct.
we're guaranteed those dollars. Although we may have to reimburse, we continue to get those dollars in the future, which is an important distinction. And I don't know if all homeowners recognize that although it may increase jobs and a lot of positive pieces to the economy, it does impact taxes.
Yeah, but the give back after the fact, they get to take it off money that's already been established in a budget that's already been set.
Correct.
And so that's a real problem.
Very can be harmful.
Yeah.
For the next one is also it's a school year pay bus fee. So in years past, the district has done a formula to ensure that any rider, typically, if you're over 1.5 miles, you're entitled to have a bus a bus ride. But if you're under that, or there's no hazards needed, then you actually have to pay for the bus. And at last year's rate, it was $379 a child. There were 13 riders in the years past who paid, and with this going on with the pandemic, the district would like to freeze that at $379 again this year.
Question, do we provide waivers or anything like that for any parents that can't afford the $379?
For 13 students, by all means.
Like if there's a
In
hardship
the
waiver-
past, we have set up payment plans. I don't know that we have set up waivers. Ron, I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, we definitely have conversations and talk through those things. Again, this is transportation for people who don't qualify for that. So if they don't get it, that means they live, within 1.5 miles of their school.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just thinking of, it's $5,000 we're talking about here. And I'm just thinking of the parents that live very close that for some reason need a bus to get their kid to school. And there may be parents that 379 is going to hit harder than others, so I just didn't know what we've done in the past.
Yeah, just a clarification too. Is it strict on that distance, or does it also pull out students who might live closer, but there's like major thoroughfares?
Yeah, correct. So what we do is we'll file with the state over the summer about any sort of hazards. And then if there are some students that are under, like no sidewalks, that's a major hazard.
There's clear criteria, so it's not ambiguous.
Katie can address what you were asking about, Robert, because it's come up in other ways.
It has. If there's a safety concern and a family need, that's something that we can work through our community outreach specialists and the Opportunities for Empowerment Fund to support.
Sure, okay.
The other piece is that we don't typically add routes, so they would have to get to a route, which could be challenging as well. And if we're adding routes or even different pickup locations, that number would look very different. Yeah,
makes sense.
Okay. Thank you. Now we're up to 6.06, and that's you again, Ron.
So this one is award for maintenance vehicles, and there are two parts to this. First thing is that the district is looking to cycle through its fleet of vehicles. Replacement of these vehicles are coinciding with some of our long-range plans for replacing, because there are problems that they have. We want to minimize repair costs, in particular, to maximize any sort of value. There are two 2021 or 22 Ford E350 trucks that are utilized. They could be utilized for day-to-day maintenance of operations for a value combined $107,406. They would replace two Chevy vehicles from the year 2003 that we currently have. But we are also looking into doing any sort of hybrid work. Albert's on that right now for an opportunity to not only do with the environment. I know that Genesis was something that was discussed in the past as well. I think you've brought up as well. So it's something we are looking into.
Yeah. I think I asked the question to Dr. Fessler. What are we looking at? $55,000 for a truck? That just seems high.
Brian, could you tell how much we're
Have you
getting
seen a
for
price
the
of a pickup truck lately?
2003 trucks?
Is that what they're going for?
Well, and they're industrial, it's not just a regular pickup truck.
Oh, yeah? Wow, never mind. I haven't shopped for a car in a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mardell, they were bought for $1,000. So that, I mean, I guess it kind of tells you the kind of condition they're in.
$1,000, wow.
Yeah. And then, Robert, last year, I believe it was, they were probably a little over $50,000 for each of the vehicles.
Wow.
And just my other quick question on this one is, it's always frustrating when we only get one bid. I think this is one where like Curry Motors submitted the only bid. It just surprises me that in a pandemic as well, like there wouldn't be more dealerships that are eager to bid on something like this. But any insight into why?
Not necessarily. I know that Albert and Eleni worked pretty hard on that one, and I can talk to them a bit more. But if that comes up, the situation like that, we're always looking for a minimum of 3 for items even under $25,000. So we'll work on that.
Just update in the weekly. That'd be, I'd be interesting.
It's a good question.
Are our hands tied as far as spending? Like, for example, if Curry Motors said, all right, it's going to be $107,000 for 2 vehicles, could we go to X dealership and say, hey, Curry offered us $107,000 for 2, could you beat that?
I mean, that's why they have the bid inspect process to prevent that.
Right, and plus, that's borderline not the best, not good practice, just because you give.
That's why they have the process in place, just to protect from things like that
Just
happening.
asking.
Yeah.
I used to sell cars, just asking.
So just to add though, Curry Motors did provide us, went out to bid and inspect last year for 2 vehicles. Curry Motors was the winner on the last year's bid as well too. So it's not like we're not familiar with this company, but it would be nice to get more bids. But
I will work with our department on that.
Even with the posting process, we've got strict requirements that we have to file, to post and to share the information.
Okay. Thank you very much. We got through a
Thank you,
lot
guys.
very quickly. Now we're up to 7.0, consent agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I can do it. This is Courtney. Be it resolved that on the 8th day of March, 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approved the consent agenda as presented and amended, including 7.01, approval of minutes prior meetings, 7.02, disbursements resolution, 7.03, acceptance of financial reports, 7.04, acceptance of recommendations, human resources report, and 7.05, approval to destroy 18-month-old or older closed session recordings.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Patty?
Okay, Patty, roll call, please.
Hang on. Okay, Karlovic,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Mencia,
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
and Krinsky.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
All right, thank you. Now we're up to the rest of the action items. We're up to 8.01. Would somebody make a motion, please, on 8.01?
I'll make the motion. Oh, man, that's too small for me. Let me bring it
There you
up.
go.
on my
There you
computer.
go.
There we go. Be it resolved on the 8th day of March, 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education hereby approves the 21-22 school calendars for a total of 198 calendar days. A copy of the adapted calendar will be attached to the approved minutes of the March 8th, 2021 school board meeting.
That was Randy. I bet you caught that. Who would like to second it,
I'll
please?
second Chris Gadlevich.
Thank you.
And could we do just a
Chris.
quick discussion
Oh,
on
Lang?
this? Oh, I'm
One
sorry. I wondered
moment.
if we could do a quick discussion, Patty. Just, the only reason why is we did get a number of public comments on this point asking us to, I think every public comment asked us to move the calendar back in light of giving students more free time to play in the summer. Which frankly, on a certain level, I love the idea of, because I do think our kids need more outdoor time in good weather, but I'm going to vote to approve this calendar personally because the way I see it, we've had a lot of changes this year. Parents and teachers are striving to make plans and keep them, and I think it's pretty likely that people have already scheduled plans around this calendar. And then I think on top of that, you know, the whole reason, from what I understand, that the board moved to this calendar was to follow the high school district so that families who have kids of multiple ages are not dealing with different vacation schedules. So I don't like the idea of further complicating parents' lives by having a high schooler on one schedule and an elementary student on another one. So I'm going to vote to approve this calendar as is.
Right, and it's not only that, but when parents depend on the older children to watch younger children, if they're on a different calendar, then you've got coverage gaps. Or if you depend on a high school student to watch your children after school if you're a working parent, which happens too. So I also will approve it. Any other comments before we go to roll call? Yes, Dr. Fessler.
When we made this change, we did survey our staff and our families, and that was quite a while ago, but they all, it was like, Tom, do you remember the percentage? It was they were in favor of moving for both parties. Only slightly, but both were in favor.
Correct. That was a while ago. Okay, Patty, roll call, please.
Lang,
Aye.
Mencia,
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Krinsky,
Aye.
and Karlovic.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
All right, now we're up to 8.03, excuse me. Would someone like to make the motion?
And this is Robert. Whereas a public hearing was held on February 8th, 2021 to meet the requirement in Section 24-2 of the School Code to designate President's Day for Lincoln's birthday holiday and November
Oops, sorry.
24th, 2021 for Veterans Day. Am I reading the right one?
Yes, no, I was wrong. We hadn't done 8.02. Thank you. Continue.
Now therefore be it resolved that on the 8th day of March 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education, in accordance with provisions of the Illinois School Code, designate the following days as holidays for negotiated contracts and administrative non-negotiated employees for the 2021-2022 fiscal years, as provided in the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second is Courtney.
Okay, roll call, please.
All right. Mancia,
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Krinsky,
Aye.
Karlovic,
Aye.
and Lang.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Okay, now we're up to 8.03. 8.03. I can't seem to speak tonight. Would someone make the motion, please?
This is Randy, I'll make the motion. I'll take the bullet and read the one. Whereas the city of Chicago is a home ruled municipality pursuant to Article 7, Section 6 of the 1970 Illinois Constitution, and as such may exercise any power and perform any function related to its government and affairs. And whereas the city of Chicago owns and operates an airport known as Chicago O'Hare International Airport, and whereas pursuant to the authority granted by the ordinance adopted by the City Council on October 30th, 1996, and Section 10 of Article 7 of the Illinois Constitution and the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act, the city entered into an intergovernmental agreement relating to O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission by and among the city and various municipalities and public school districts. And whereas the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission was established pursuant to the intergovernmental agreement and provides a common forum for interested parties to have a voice in noise issues related to the airport, and whereas by its terms, the intergovernmental agreement became effective on November of 1996, and the term was extended from December 30th, 2020 to December 31st, 2025. And whereas ONCC has indicated a desire to improve the extensions of this intergovernmental agreement, and whereas Community Consolidated District is a current member of the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission, and whereas the City of Chicago approved the extension of the intergovernmental agreement, which is attached to this resolution, Exhibit A. Now therefore be it resolved by the Community Consolidated Board, School District 59, Section 1, that the recitals set forth within are incorporated here within by reference as factual basis for this transaction. Section 2, that the board president is hereby authorized to execute and the secretary attest the approval of the attachment intergovernmental agreement related to O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission. Section 3, that this resolution shall be enforced and in effect from its and after its passage and approval according to law. Be it resolved that on 8th day of March 2021, the Community Colleges 59 Board of Education approves the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement related to the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Agreement as presented.
Thank you, Randy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Petrielli, aye. Reed,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Krinsky,
Aye.
Karlovic,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
and Mencia.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
All right, thank you. Now we're up to 8.04. We need another motion.
I'll make the motion. Whereas 5 proposals were received for WAN wide area network and 1 proposal was received for dedicated internet. Whereas Comcast 2001 York Road, Oak Brook, Illinois 60523 submitted proposals fully meeting the district specifications for, am I pronouncing that right, WAN, or is it WAN?
WAN is
For
fine.
WAN, wide area network, and dedicated internet. Now therefore be it resolved on the 8th day of March 2021, the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 59 awards a 36-month contract for WAN, wide area network, and dedicated internet to Comcast for a cost of $394,128 with an estimated E-rate discount of 80%, resulting in a net cost to the district of $78,826.
All
This
right.
is Chris, I'll second.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris?
Yes.
All right. Reed,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Krinsky,
Aye.
Karlovic,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Mencia,
Aye.
and Petrielli. And the motion passes.
All right, thank you. Now we need a motion for 8.05, approval of donation.
This is Courtney, I'll make the motion. Be it resolved that on the 8th day of March 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the donation from Mrs. Diane Cody to Early Learning Center in the amount of $500. This donation will be used to purchase food and gas gift cards for Early Learning Center families. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to Mrs. Diane Cody in writing expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
Okay, do we have a second? Mardell seconds. I just want to say, once again, community members really reach out and help our families in so many different ways, and I want to thank Mrs. Cody for her generous donation. Roll call, please.
Schumacher. Krinsky.
Aye.
Gedlovich.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Mencia.
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. And Reed.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
All right, thank you. Now we're up to another donation, 8.06. Would somebody like to make the motion?
This is Chris, I'll take it.
I will. Oh, who?
Chris.
Chris Garlevich.
Okay. Chris?
Yes. Be it resolved that on the 8th day of March 2020, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the Captain Planet Foundation donation to Ridge Family Center for learning in the amount of $3,000. Through this donation, the school will receive raised garden beds and access to lessons, training, and curriculum. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to the Captain Planet Foundation in writing expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
This is Janice. I'd like to second that, and I would like to thank them very much. Science has always been a passion of mine, so any of the STEAM curricular materials are really of interest, and this was indeed very generous as well. Any other comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Krinsky?
Aye.
Gedlovich?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Mencia?
Aye.
Robert, I can't hear you.
Aye.
All right, good job. Petrielli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
And Schumacher.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. This next one is a repeat. This is an organization that has supported our schools in the past, and I'm really grateful for this. Would somebody please like to make a motion?
It's Courtney, I can do it.
I'll do it.
Go for it, Patty.
What are you doing right now?
We're doing another motion.
For what? I couldn't hear.
Enchanted
For another
backpack.
donation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Be it resolved that on the 8th day of March 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the donation from Enchanted Backpack to Salt Creek Elementary School with an estimated value of $9,000. This donation will provide teachers and families the ability to select items of need, and this will reduce cost of school supplies for the Salt Creek families. Oh, God, I love this. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to the Enchanted Backpack in writing expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
All right.
Patty, I'll second.
Okay. Courtney seconds. Roll call, please.
Okay. Gedlovich?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Mencia?
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
And Krinsky.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Another very generous donation. These are always well received. So now we are up to 9.01 FOIA requests.
Good evening. Since the last report to the Board of Education, there have been 4 FOIA requests received and responded to appropriately.
Okay, thank you, Ross.
Can I
Okay,
ask a question?
sure.
So I'm looking at this latest one from an individual, it's from 222 to 223.
That is correct.
How does that, one FOIA request kind of became something long? I mean, I'm just looking about the time it's spent on it and stuff like that.
That FOIA started as 6 separate requests. It was reduced to 5 separate requests. It was merged into 1 request, and then it was reduced to 2 requests. In the end, we provided all of the information that we need to provide.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, item 10.0, new continuing business and announcements. Are there any new and continuing business to come before the board? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to 11.0, reports of the Board of Education. Do we have any reports to give tonight?
I got one or two.
Okay.
Last Saturday, February 27th, I participated in the Shin UN Foundation volunteering, where we basically we met virtually. There was about 40 of us from all over the country, mind you. There were people from Florida to California to Minnesota to the United States. We had a very good representation from the district community. We met. We initially started as a big group, and we had a presentation by the fire chief of Elk Grove. The Elk Grove Township did a presentation on their food pantry and how they're able to support the community, which I didn't know how much they could really do now that they've moved in their new building on Landmeyer, which is really cool. They have a whole refrigerated section, and the families can actually go in like shopping to get what they, to pick out what they need, instead of what, here's a package and a box and pick it up. So that was really interesting. Karen Osmansky, as many of you know, an ex-board member, did a presentation from Character Counts as well. So we're just talking about all the things that, people within the community are doing. After that, we broke into small groups, and I made cards for the Children's Hospital, and other people in my groups were making bookmarks at the library, and other people were making other types of cards to distribute out. So it was interesting because I got to meet the youth counselor of the Shin Youth Foundation, and it was and then there's community members within that, and some of the kids, some of the local kids too. So it was really interesting and great day, and I was glad to pay back some of the stuff for the $40,000 donation they had given us. So I really hope we can do more with that. So that's one report. The next one, I want to kind of do a shout out to one of our teachers, Shira Manifiki, who I know she's listening because she's on a lot. She's here. She would normally be here with us. As you know, she got nominated for the Golden Apple Award, for the state. And I want to wish her good luck on Friday, because Friday is the day they're going to be interviewing staff and, watching one of her classes and stuff. So good luck, Sarah. You are a rock star.
Yeah, couldn't be more deserving, and I hope that Sarah does win the Golden Apple Award this year. I also want to thank again the Shin Yuan Foundation, because that donation of $40,000 to benefit the foundation and therefore the Opportunity for Empowerment Fund is an extraordinary amount of money that will really help to alleviate some of the more serious concerns that a lot of our families face. And it's going to be well spent. So that's fabulous.
So just a quick report and an invitation. Several of us who are in the Juliet Low community received an invitation from Juliet Low's Global Community Committee to a Zoom conversation that will happen tomorrow night at 7 p.m. If anyone is interested, reach out to me and I will connect you with the organizer or forward you the link. But essentially, it is the first of a social justice discussion series. So I know at least 3 of the board members who are in the Juliet Low community were invited and will be participating. And I would encourage any families at Juliet Low or other district schools to join us for this conversation. I think this is especially neat because it was a grassroots effort of a couple of parents and this global community committee. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this conversation, and we will report back at a subsequent meeting.
Thank you, Courtney. Any other reports of the Board of Education?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Mardell.
Okay, over the past some months, I've been hearing from a lot of people about the costs at the administration center, and as I was looking over my reports from the finance department about what our costs have been in the last month, I thought perhaps when you have time, this is not an emergency, I don't need it right away, but when you have time, Ron, maybe somebody in your department could pull up the monthly bills for electricity since we have been in the administration building and compare them to what we were spending at the old administration, and the same thing for the heating bills. for for the last however many years we have been in the administration building. When you have time, I'd appreciate that.
That would be an interesting set of data points, since this place ought to be a lot more energy efficient. Any other reports of the Board of Education?
Just one real quick. Last Monday, I was listening in and participated in the dual language program night for incoming kindergarten teachers that was hosted by the Salt Creek staff. So there was about 18 parents or so on the Zoom that were interested in signing up for kindergarten in the dual language program there. So I, as a parent and as a board member, I gave kind of my thoughts on the program, and hopefully all 18 sign up.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to reports of the superintendent's team.
Thank you. We have a few reports. First of all, I'd like to share that Ben Gray has secured a $10,000 grant through FedEx as part of the Future School Network that we're part of. So we'll have, I don't know all the details right now, but we'll have access to $10,000 worth of their services and supplies to utilize. And that is to help school districts with needy populations during this time of COVID. So we were one of a handful of school districts selected from or throughout the country. So we received that notification a couple of days ago. And I'll bring more details. I have a Zoom meeting with them next week, so that was good news.
Wonderful. Thank you.
A few other quick updates. I've asked Katie to provide an update on the audit. Tom's going to do resource allocation, and then there was one other. I can't remember what it is, but someone will. Refresh? Yes, the technology refresh, which was a facility or finance committee meeting topic. So Katie, would you begin, please? Thank you.
We are currently on track with our timeline for the request for proposals for an internal audit of equity in District 59. We did post that on February 24th. We've now had 5 agencies reach out and communicate about that, which is excellent. I reached out personally to 6 that I knew of and have communicated with and found resources from in the past. We did have 1 agency submit questions for clarification, which I will respond to next Monday. The submissions for proposals are due on March 22nd, and we will be reviewing that with a small representative committee on March 30th and bringing that back to the board in April.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Good, Ron. Or Justin, are you providing the tech refresh? Did you get information on that?
Yep, Justin and I are both working on it.
Thank you.
For the tech refresh, pull this up. It's been an update with being able to provide for all the elementaries and junior highs. Previously, the number was at about $3,795,000 to do the tech refresh. From my understanding in talking with Ben in the last couple of months, the way that the district has spent and the way they've refreshed it and done it the right way, it's actually saved us $1.56 million. And now for the next tech refresh, we're only looking at a $2.2 million cost. A lot of that we think will go from the ESSER 2 funds that we're looking at right now, so that we can actually get those items like the laptops, the Chromebooks. It fits the plan because of the idea of technology being utilized for when we talk about anything with, like if you're talking Zoom, like I keep thinking about Zoom. So that's something that we're looking at for that. What would you like to add, Justin?
Just in terms of what step in the process our IT department is in, we've received a couple different models from CDW and Acer to look at those models compared to what we have currently, and then the tech department, including Eddie, they're getting building level insight from the techs in terms of the functionality and the amount of usage in our current models and what might be best for the transition for the future. So Ben and Kathy Savage have really been involved in that process. So beyond just our building techs, we're actually looking and consulting with neighboring districts to see what they might have been able to take advantage of with models as well. So we'll have more forthcoming.
Go ahead, Randy, go ahead.
These will be purchased next year, and they'll be put in service for the 21 22-23 school year?
Next school, actually
So
for
the
next school
2020
year.
No, this-
So we're going to run a process this spring. We're in the process of running a process, so the adoption will be next school year.
Did I hear that the new COVID dollars would be able to be used for this? Okay.
Are they covered completely? The complete cost?
It could.
That's great.
Yeah, it could. And again, I got to emphasize that Ben will probably give you better information, but the way he's refreshed it, I mean, he got the $10,000 grant from FedEx, and then the savings of about, again, $1.6 million, the way he's planned out the refresh has been excellent.
Yeah, Ben's been quite the pro at that. Ben, if you're listening, thank you.
Do we have any idea what with the COVID 170 billion, I think that was allocated for schools, how much we may see of that?
3.8 million.
Yeah.
This is Randy, that was a January one. Are you talking about the one that's just been?
The one that was just passed.
The new one that we're getting is 3.8 million. We got $1 million the first round, 3.8 the second, and Ron was saying we wouldn't likely see those dollars probably till about January of next year. Is that still the timeline?
By January 2022. But then you can also claim anything prior to that.
We had built in those technology dollars into the budget, so they're already there. So we'll be able to utilize ESSER dollars. I mean, it's, yeah, an accounting maneuver, but yeah, that's the plan.
Excellent. Did you have one more report from the superintendent?
Resource allocation, really quickly, we continue to work through that process. Obviously, it's a little different this year than in the past, and right now we're focused on the prioritization part of that process and getting feedback around that and looking at current resources for shifting. Right now, the top priority that's come through our discussions has been connected to math, which would make sense based on the work we're doing. So we'll do some work tomorrow at the admin meeting on that piece, and then in April, come back with a review and a recommendation.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you for all those reports. Now we need a motion to go into closed session. I'll make a motion to go into closed session for discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district and collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Oh, where am I? Galovich,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed,
Aye.
Newmarker,
Abstain. I couldn't hear any of it.
and Chris,
I'm abstaining.
you're abstaining?
Mhm.
And Krinsky,
Aye.
and the motion passes.
Okay, I want to thank everybody who listened in from home, and for all the staff that joined us in person. And we can take a 5-minute break if anybody needs it, and we'll come back in 5 minutes.